I become the Demon King in Marvel. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 1: The people of America are going to suffer. Shen Miao Bureau, Ring Fortress. Lin Hao, a seemingly refined figure in a white lab coat and black-framed glasses, walked into the office of Director Zheng Xian. Zheng Xian, who was fiddling with an orchid, turned his head and said, "Please sit down. There's tea in the pot, freshly brewed Longjing tea." Lin Hao walked over to the sofa and sat down, picking up the teapot and pouring himself a cup. He thought, after all, he needed a favor, and it was rare for him to pour a cup for Zheng Xian. Zheng Xian, who was working at the windowsill, finished his work, put down his scissors, wiped his hands with a wet towel, and then leisurely walked over to the sofa and sat down to Lin Hao's left. "Has my application been approved?" Lin Hao took a sip of tea. "Look, you're anxious again," Zheng Xian glared at him. Hearing this, Lin Hao seemed dazed, as if remembering something. He smiled and replied, "Zheng Ziwu, I really want to improve." As he spoke, he smiled to himself, reminiscing about a long-lost memory. "You're being unreasonable again." Zheng Xian couldn't do anything about him, so he sighed and said helplessly, "The higher-ups have approved your application. From now on, you'll be the head of the Americas branch, reorganizing the intelligence network there." Lin Hao's smile faded, a hint of joy flashing behind his glasses. He slowly sipped his tea, set his cup down, and asked sternly, "What's the bottom line?" Zheng Xian also set his cup down, met Lin Hao's gaze, and said solemnly, "Remember your nationality. Besides, no taboos." Lin Hao's joy could no longer be concealed, and the corners of his mouth curled up. "Okay, I'll arrange the handover." Lin Hao stood up, a little impatient. Watching his brisk steps, Zheng Xian smiled and shook his head. A moment later, the office door opened again, and a graceful woman with cascading black hair walked in. She also sat down and poured tea. "Are we really sending Director Lin to America?" The weather which was still a little incredulous. "Ever since Nick Fury came to power, SHIELD has become increasingly aggressive. Not only have they destroyed our network in America, they've even established a SHIELD branch in Hong Kong, using our membership dues as a thug for the United States. It's time to teach him a lesson," Zheng Xian said coldly, his face stern. "It's called fighting fire with fire, but this poison," the weather witch, still apprehensive, asked, "Isn't it too strong?" "Yes, the people of America." Zheng Xian's expression suddenly became strange, as if he was trying to suppress a laugh. "They're going to suffer," his tone tinged with lingering gloating. Bang! The conference room door was flung open, and a man in a white coat, his hair tangled like grass, burst in. He eagerly asked Zheng Xian, "Director, is the director going out on a field trip?" Zheng Xian glared at him. "That's not a question you should be asking." Yu Zhen immediately changed his tone. "Will the director be in tomorrow?" Zheng Xian stared at him for a long moment before deliberating. "Director Lin is going on vacation. While he's gone, the technical development department needs you as their assistant." Yu Zhen's shoulders trembled, his hands and feet quivered, tears streaming down his face. He didn't even listen to the rest of the conversation. He immediately pulled out his phone and eagerly responded, "Brothers, it's confirmed. The big devil is gone," even through the phone. Zheng Xian could hear the deafening cheers erupting from the other side. "Ha ha ha, Quanzhou tonight, it's my treat," he shouted as he rushed out. Zheng Xian chased after him, yelling, "You little brat. If we fall behind, you're the only one I'll hold responsible." Don't worry, Yu Zhen ran cheerfully, waving his hand. "I'll always consult the director if I have any questions. As long as the big devil stops nagging us, our work ethic will definitely double." Zheng Xian shook his head and turned back to his office. Lin Hao left the Ring Fortress in the northern Yanshan Mountains, where he had temporarily landed, and drove back to his home in Beijing. He had dinner with his parents and confessed that he would be away on business for a while, with an uncertain return date. The next morning, Lin Hao boarded a flight to America, and 12 hours later, the plane landed at San Francisco International Airport. Lin Hao, tall and well-proportioned, dressed in a black windbreaker, emerged from the airport. His features were soft, and his smile resembled the boy next door. The black-framed glasses on his nose gave him a scholarly air. A taxi stopped in front of Lin Hao, and the black driver tilted his head and asked, "Hi, sir, would you like a taxi?" Lin Hao glanced at the young black man and smiled knowingly. Sure. The taxi started and headed towards the city. The brightly lit city that never sleeps was shrouded in a hazy glow. Lin Hao boarded his flight at 8 a.m. Beijing time. After a 12-hour flight, it was now 4 a.m. in San Francisco. Along the way, the black driver was chatty, constantly trying to connect with Lin Hao. "Sir, are you from Japan?" "No, I'm Chinese." "Wow, that's a nice country." The black driver glanced at Lin Hao in the rearview mirror, his smile widening. Seeing Lin Hao admiring the streetscape outside, he smiled and asked, "Sir, is this your first time in America?" "San Francisco is a beautiful city, isn't it? Welcome to America. This is paradise." The black driver had no idea what Lin Hao's eyes were seeing. The resentment of the living lingering over the city, the wails of the weak echoing in his ears, and the lingering color of blood. "Yes, this is my paradise," the great devil smiled. After years of applying, he finally made it here. A paradise for the devil. The taxi suddenly veered off the main road, picking up speed. After winding its way through a series of twists and turns, it finally reached a desolate slum and spun into an old, abandoned factory. "Hey, guys," the black driver slammed on the brakes, smoothly opened the door, and waved cheerfully toward the factory. The lights dimmed, and several pieces of clothing suddenly floated over. "Hody, don't tell me you're off duty now," a floating piece of clothing suddenly said. "It seems I need to remind you how much you still owe me, Boss Ryan. I'll pay you back soon," the black man named Hody said, pointing at Lin Hao, who had already gotten out of the car. "That kid just came from China. He must have quite a few dollars on him. You know, people in that country are stupid enough to save money." Ryan stepped into the light and saw that beneath the floating piece of clothing was a piece of farm equipment. "Not bad, you actually found a lone yellow monkey." As he spoke, all the farm equipment in the abandoned factory gathered around, glaring at Lin Hao. "Yellow monkey, hand over everything valuable on you. Boss Ryan might spare your life for God's sake." Lin Hao glanced around the farm tools, a knowing smile on his face. "Sure enough, this is my paradise." Suddenly, a thick blackness emanated from Lin Hao's body, transforming into a towering figure before the horrified gazes of the farm tools. A pair of large, scarlet eyes suddenly opened above the pitch-black form. A pair of horns sprouted from its head, and in one hand, it held a black fork. Oh, wow, Mom, he's a devil." The farm tools erupted in high-pitched screams, but the darkness surrounding them had already shrouded them. "Mute their voices. Don't eat me." Yes, I'm sorry, I still like the way you were just now. Please recover." Lin Hao extended his hand, and the massive demonic head unexpectedly moved beneath his palm, rubbing against it left and right. A look of satisfaction appeared on its face, its crimson eyes narrowing. "That way, my little cutie can eat a little more." The devil was terrifying, but the man before him, with a boy-next-door smile, had become even scarier than the devil himself, a demon king. Chapter 2, he is a gentleman when wearing glasses, but he is not a human being when taking off glasses. Half an hour later, Lin Hao emerged from the abandoned factory, leaving behind the distorted remains of several farm tools. They bore no wounds, having died of sheer terror. Within half an hour, the tools had been battered, squeezed dry by the devil. Lin Hao navigated his way out of the slums with ease, seemingly familiar with San Francisco's roads. Perhaps it was the darkest hour before dawn. Even the scavengers busy with their $0 shopping were fast asleep, leaving him with no fish to catch. "Thank goodness I didn't catch anything." The fisherman Lin Hao hailed another taxi. The driver, a respectful old man, safely dropped Lin Hao off at a manor on San Francisco's west side, overlooking the Pacific Ocean. Yes, the driver was safe. The manor's guard seemed to have anticipated Lin Hao's arrival and had been waiting for him all night. The manor was small, covering less than 3 acres, unassuming compared to the vast estates that sprawled dozens or even hundreds of acres. When Lin Hao entered the castle-like main house and the gate closed, the owner of the manor trotted forward and greeted him respectfully. "Master, you've finally arrived." The other servants, unsurprised by this, all bowed to Lin Hao, their expressions numb and their movements mechanical. "We've prepared your meal. Enter the house." A servant stepped forward to take Lin Hao's luggage and his windbreaker. He removed his glasses and applied some hairspray. His hairstyle instantly transformed. There's a long-held rumor within the SHIE, The great demon is a refined man with glasses, but without them, he's a complete mess. As he walked toward the stairs, Lin Hao's face began to adjust slightly, even his figure growing taller and larger. Ultimately, he assumed the same appearance as the owner of the manor. It wasn't a change, but a restoration. This was Lin Hao's true self. Only 4 outsiders could distinguish his current and previous selves: Zheng Xian, his direct supervisor, and Lin Hao's parents. Furthermore, the colleagues within the SHIE who had interacted with him had only seen Lin Hao in his previous, deliberately disguised form. Since joining the SHIE Bureau 10 years ago, Lin Hao has meticulously disguised himself, gradually altering his appearance to reflect other trends. This subtle process ultimately led to a new, familiar appearance. A double bearing his true appearance had already arrived in San Francisco 5 years earlier and established himself there. Lin Hao has simply retracted this identity. He and his double went to the upstairs study. After the double closed the door, Lin Hao patted the back of his left hand. On it, a demonic image, invisible to all but him, appeared. A rich black hue permeated the air once again. A pitch-black figure, crimson eyes, curved horns, and a black fork in hand perfectly embodied the image of a demon as defined in Western culture. Do you want to get rich? Do you want overnight fame? Do you want to have a romantic relationship? Do you want eternal youth, 30 years in the East, 30 years in the West? Don't despise the poor young, tread on the southern sky, shatter the sky, hey, give me your soul. Seeing the demon's maw opening and closing, these sounds emanating from it, Lin Hao's face darkened. He reached out and threw a large pouch at it. Being foolish again, huh? The enormous demon shrank instantly, transforming into a small black sphere less than 30 centimeters tall. 3 white slits marked its round body, marking its eyes and mouth. 2 even smaller black spheres floated in the air on either side of the spherical demon. These were its hands. The right black sphere clutched a small trident. 2 arrow-shaped horns pierced its head. Woo, woo, woo. The demon's eyes suddenly turned into 2 watery spots, with teardrops dangling from the edges. Master, you hit me. Without Lin Hao's permission, the demon could neither be seen nor heard by outsiders. Alright, open your mouth. The aggrieved little demon suddenly opened its mouth, and a rectangular door of light suddenly appeared in the study. Lin Hao walked in, followed by his double. Once inside, Lin Hao leaned over to pick up the tape recorder from the floor and flip the switch, ending the bizarre dialogue. The sound that had just come out of the little demon's mouth wasn't its own, but from the tape recorder, like a hoarse bumblebee. While the little demon wasn't mute, it could only utter simple syllables, such as woo woo woo, moo woo woo, and pa pa pa. Beyond the doorway lay a vast, uncharted area, shrouded in darkness. Only the doorway shone brightly, where a large amount of experimental and production equipment lay. The double entered, walked towards a glass tank to the side, stripped naked, and stepped into the unknown liquid. In a moment, his muscles and bones began to dissolve, returning to the material from which he had been made. Lin Hao opened a nearby incubator, and out stepped an android identical to the one Lin Hao had used on the plane. The android stumbled as it took its first step, but quickly adjusted. Very good. From now on, you'll be called Zheng Xian, responsible for tending to the manor's flowers and plants. Far across the ocean, within the ring fortress, Zheng Xian suddenly sneezed. The scissors in his hand trembled, and he accidentally cut an orchid leaf. His wide eyes suddenly narrowed, his features constricted, and his heart ached. Damn Lin Hao. He won't even let me rest in peace after he's gone. For no apparent reason, he simply remembered that annoying guy. The passport Lin Hao had used to buy his plane ticket was named Zheng Xian, and everything about this identity was traceable. He had come to San Francisco because a friend had introduced him to a gardener at the manor. After Zheng Xian left, Lin Hao continued on his way. The production equipment he encountered along the way was rugged and outdated, with a distinct steampunk feel. Yet, such equipment can actually create artificial humans beyond the reach of current technology. Arriving at the center of the experimental field, Lin Hao faced 3 exquisite glass display cases, each containing a severed arm, a forked head, and a pair of pure cotton panties printed with cartoon patterns. Lin Hao, now 28 years old, had just arrived in this world, believing himself to have been simply reborn. He was planning to use his advanced memory to make a fortune, perhaps even a few small goals, when he suddenly saw a black and white photo in his junior high school history textbook. Beneath the photo was the words Captain America, Lin Hao was stunned for a long moment. If it were just a comic book, further confirmation would be needed, but even the most arrogant banana man wouldn't brazenly include it in a history textbook. Furthermore, the person in the black and white photo looked more and more like Chris Evans. No country would be so foolish as to consider an actor a historical figure and include him in a textbook. After a moment of daze, Lin Hao finally realized he was in the Marvel Universe, and a cinematic one at that. This meant that in 2018, the director of the Universal Family Planning Office would snap his fingers, randomly wiping out half of all life in the universe. This meant that even if Lin Hao managed to achieve a few hundred or a few thousand small goals in the future, he would still be risking his life on this 50% chance. How could he possibly live like that? He knew his own death, waiting day after day. Worse still, if he died, his money wouldn't have been spent. That would be even more painful. At that moment, Lin Hao realized he had to defy fate and change his destiny. It was also at this moment that Lin Hao's cheat program came online. He gained a little demon, a demon that could travel through the heavens and universes, bringing back treasure along the way. Chapter 3, Free America. The sound of gunfire is the alarm clock. The energy that drives the little demon is the resentment of living beings, encompassing a variety of negative emotions such as anger, despair, fear, hatred, and resentment. The most valuable of these is the resentment wrought by the death of living beings. 15 years have passed since Lin Hao acquired the little demon at the age of 13. Previously, due to his limitations in China, he was unable to unleash large-scale slaughter, forcing himself to slack off and become a dedicated demon king, exploiting his classmates, relatives, and colleagues. Now, those close to him are immune to all poisons and no longer possess the slightest resentment. Compared to America, serious crime in China is rare, and it's impossible for the SHIE to handle it all. Lin Hao only has the opportunity to feast on the little demon during field missions. This is why Lin Hao has repeatedly applied to travel to America. America is his haven for harvesting the resentment of living beings. With sufficient energy, the little demon can travel to other worlds and bring back items from those worlds. Unfortunately, each mission is short-lived, confined to the area surrounding its appearance. Furthermore, its inability to identify the value of items leads to a variety of strange and bizarre items. Starting with rocks and plants, Lin Hao later taught it to pick up conspicuous and unusual objects. The little devil then began bringing back all sorts of luminous ornaments, gold, jewelry, jade, and other items. While this partially alleviated Lin Hao's financial difficulties as a teenager, it did little to strengthen his own strength. It wasn't until 2 years later, when the little devil brought back a massive head, that Lin Hao's life truly changed. This was the long, stick-like object with a forked top, now sealed in a glass display case. When Lin Hao's hand touched something brought back by the little devil, he could automatically determine its origin and identity, and selectively absorb the energy, knowledge, and other special properties contained within. If the object possessed a unique structure, Lin Hao could even choose to copy it, thereby acquiring its special abilities. This massive head originated from the world of One Piece and was the severed brain of Vegapunk, a scientist known for his intelligence 500 years beyond humankind. The moment Lin Hao came into contact with a brain, he automatically acquired all the knowledge contained within. To digest this vast knowledge, he resolutely copied its structure. Fortunately, his head remained intact, and instead, he gained the power of the brain fruit. From then on, the ordinary time traveler Lin Hao rose to become a scientist mastering numerous cutting-edge technologies. He joined the SHIE Bureau and became the youngest leader of the Technical Development Department. After obtaining Vegapunk's brain, the little devil traveled countless times over the next 13 years, but only recovered 2 or 3 other useful items. These were Yanguo's left arm, Bulma's panties, and a box of universal capsules that arrived with the panties. Yanguo's left arm allowed Lin Hao to absorb the remaining internal energy and replicate the meridians that had been opened there onto his own hand. Although Yanguo had already mastered the Kwanzan and Tomb School martial arts, as well as the 9 Yin manual, the meridians in a single arm alone were insufficient for Lin Hao to master the entire body's energy flow. He could only gradually deduce a basic set of internal energy techniques on his own, drawing on extensive Taoist texts and relying on the power of the brain fruit. Lin Hao felt particularly happy when he recalled the moment when Imp ran over to him, panties in one hand and the capsule box in the other, seeking praise. Of course, it wasn't because of Bulma's panties. Lin Hao absorbed the unique energy chi from both items and successfully understood the structure of the universal capsule. After careful analysis using the power of the brain fruit, he mastered the method for its creation. The entire box of universal capsules contained a flying car, a portable villa, and other high-tech items unique to the Dragon Ball world. The technologies contained in these items all became part of Lin Hao's knowledge base. Besides the greatest discovery of Qi, Lin Hao also extracted Bulma's genes and bloodline from the panties. When Lin Hao first encountered the panties, he was puzzled by the surge of intriguing ideas, even feeling his IQ had improved. Only after examining them did he discover a secretion inside. Based on Little Devil's description of the scene, Lin Hao suspected Bulma had just met Goku and was on their quest for the Dragon Balls. It was on that first night that Bulma brought out the capsule house, and Goku, curious about the differences in sexuality between men and women, had been curious. Little Devil had probably taken advantage of Bulma's shower to steal the panties and the box containing the universal capsule. Lin Hao simply wanted to say, well done. Without these two things, how could he master the powerful energy of Qi, right? Isn't it such a memorable item worth cherishing? The forgotten universal capsule? Yes, you're right. Behind 3 glass display cases stood 3 exquisite incubators, each containing 3 thriving individuals in nutrient solution. They were the 11-year-old clone Bulma, the 10-year-old clone Vegapunk, and the 9-year-old clone Yanguo. Unlike the cheap androids mentioned earlier, these 3 clones are normally grown and free of additives. They will serve as Director Lin's capable assistants and secretaries. Why, having acquired Vegapunk's genes first, did he cultivate Bulma first? Director Lin declared his lifelong vengeance against gambling and drugs. Now you understand why he so carefully treasures the pure cotton panties? Because they've made a significant contribution to scientific research. After observing the progress of the cultivation, Lin Hao picked up the Little Devil and checked its energy reserves. Despite having just consumed the resentment of living things from several farm tools, it still fell far short of 100 trips. The Little Devil's energy requirements are constant for each trip, but the problem lies in its randomness. Lin Hao has no control over the world it travels to, nor can he predict what it will bring back. Therefore, after gaining the power of the brain fruit, Lin Hao used technology to create 3D videos from his memories of movies, anime, and novels. He plays them on a loop for the Little Devil every day, highlighting key scenes and high-value items. The worlds the Little Devil had already visited were of paramount importance. Even so, 10 consecutive draws couldn't bring Lin Hao any surprises. So he resorted to hundreds of consecutive draws, hoping for a miracle. Leaving this special space and returning to his study, it was already past 5 o'clock. Lin Hao, instead of resting, went to the east-facing training room to sit cross-legged in meditation. Since acquiring these items, and driven by the near-future life-or-death crisis, Lin Hao's life has become extremely regular. Unless there are unexpected events, he rises at 6 o'clock every day, meditates for 2 hours to cultivate his internal energy. After breakfast, he practices external energy for 2 hours using the 6 marine styles techniques he learned from Vegapunk's memories. Then he goes to work, and after get off work, he continues this 4-hour period of combined internal and external cultivation. Internal energy not only amplifies punches and kicks, but also repairs the damage inflicted by intense physical training. It also invigorates one, allowing him to easily defeat 7 enemies in a single night without any harm. If it were you, wouldn't you practice? With both internal and external training, Lin Hao's physique has been continuously strengthened, and the ki in his body has increased day by day. Unfortunately, he does not know the corresponding techniques and can only grope on his own. The sun rises, and the morning light is gorgeous. Continuous gunshots came from the distance, like an alarm clock, waking up the American people. A new day has begun in the free America. With an alarm clock with American characteristics, Lin Hao opened his eyes and showed a knowing smile. Little cutie, it's time for you to act again. The Little Devil jumped out, and the 3 white marks on his spherical body squeezed out a happy smile. Please collect, recommend, and read. Chapter 4. Do you want the power of the devil? If Lin Hao's arrival weren't factored in, it would have been just another ordinary morning in San Francisco. Ellen, a middle-aged white woman, had an ordinary family. Her alcoholic husband, rebellious son, and the relentless monthly bank bills had worn down her patience. Bitch, how dare that babe next door mock me for not knowing how to sort my trash. Sooner or later, I'm going to shoot her fake breasts. Early that morning, her husband, Dane, heard his wife's curses. Still hungover, He snarled impatiently from the bedroom, "Kill her if you want, or call the police and have them kill her, don't bother me." Fuck, Ellen, in the kitchen, chopped a carrot off the cutting board. If she hadn't lacked the skills to make a living, her age, and her shape, and the inability to find a living, Ellen would have killed her alcoholic husband first. Busy in the kitchen, Ellen suddenly noticed smoke billowing from the next door. A plan struck her, and she immediately ran to the phone and dialed 911. "I'm calling the police. There's a fire next door to my house. It looks like someone set it on fire." "Yeah, that's right. A black man. Okay, I live on Kearney Street." After hanging up the phone, Ellen let out a smug smile. She quickly rushed into the bedroom, rummaged through the drawers, and found an old video camera. She wanted to film the bitch next door getting beaten to death. Just thinking about it made her happy. Soon, sirens blared in the distance, and two heavily armed San Francisco police officers got out of a police car. "Hey, George, which house did the caller just mention?" The burly Jack Bryan put his hand on his holster and asked his colleague George, who had already drawn his gun. "It's arson. Wherever there's smoke, that's where it happened." George hadn't really been listening carefully, but he quickly spotted the source of the smoke. "Look, over there." It was a townhouse. The black neighbor Ellen had mentioned lived east of her. But a gentle westerly breeze was blowing in from the sea, and the neighbor had dumped the burnt hamburger that had caused the smoke. The smoke had stopped, and instead, wisps of smoke drifted toward the apartment further east. So, two San Francisco police officers arrived at the easternmost apartment. Coincidentally, it also housed a black man, Will Fortson, a 23-year-old Air Force pilot who happened to be home on his day off. The two officers had their guns drawn. Jack Bryan, a burly figure, led the way, while his colleague George stayed a little further back. Knock, knock, knock. Jack knocked on the door, his gun raised. Will Fortson, who was inside, heard the knocks and shouted, "Who's there?" The two San Francisco police officers didn't answer. Alarmed, Will Fortson went to the closet, retrieved his legally licensed service pistol, and cautiously approached the door. He first glanced through the peephole and saw two armed police officers. Terrified, he quickly took 2 steps back, shouting, "Who are you?" Seeing him dare not open the door immediately, the police outside raised their guns even higher. Open the door immediately," Jack Bryan shouted. Will Fortson, who was inside, remembered the friendly reminder given by his black predecessor, who had served in the military with him. War wasn't the most terrifying thing. The real thing to be wary of was the American police. The young Will Fortson panicked. "What are you doing?" Will shouted anxiously from behind the door. "I'm an Air Force pilot." "You, a pilot?" Jack outside laughed. "Open the door immediately, or we'll take further action." Will Fortson panicked and made a decision he would regret for the rest of his life. He foolishly stepped forward to open the door, not raising his pistol, but simply holding it in his hand. As the door opened, Jack Bryan's sharp eyes immediately noticed his skin color and the gun in his hand. Unsurprisingly, the gunfire rang out. Bang, 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 bang. 6 shots were fired in a row. Will Fortson collapsed to the ground, blood splattering the floor. Only then did Jack Bryan bark a warning, "Drop the gun." "Drop the gun now." Jack stepped forward and kicked the gun out of Will's hand, still trained on the still-breathing black man. George quickly searched the house and returned, a little panicked. He whispered in Jack's ear, "Damn it. He's an Air Force pilot." Jack, stunned, saw several residents gathered outside. His face darkened as he retracted his gun. "Call an ambulance." He quickly left Will's apartment, returned to the police car, and immediately called his superiors. "Boss, we're in trouble," Jack reported honestly. "I shot a guy, and he's an Air Force pilot." "Is he dead?" his superior demanded. "Not yet, but it's not good." Jack said weakly. "I fired 6 shots, asshole." The boss, startled but unperturbed, evidently experienced in similar situations, quickly ordered, "Come back immediately. No one else can see the camera footage." "All right," Jack said, gloomy. This time, he was definitely going to be on forced leave. Will Fortson's breath was growing weaker, his pupils dilating. He heard his neighbor, Aunt Ellen, muttering quietly, "Stupid police. They found the wrong room." Will looked in the direction of the voice and saw Ellen glaring at her next-door neighbor, a black woman who had narrowly escaped death, with hatred and frustration. He understood everything. "I can't breathe." These were the words uttered by George Floyd and Frank Tyson, 2 African-American men killed by American police officers. Will Fortson was fortunate, however. Just as he was about to die, a black cloud enveloped him. Do you want revenge? Do you want the power of the devil? Hey, give me your soul. Will Fortson, on his deathbed, was stunned for a moment, then spoke without hesitation. I do. His pitch-black figure, curved horns, crimson eyes, and arrogant words were a perfect match for the legendary devil. He was dying, so what if he sold his soul to the devil? Besides, Will Fortson felt so wronged. If he'd been framed, it would have been easy, but the police had the wrong person. Even in heaven, he wouldn't have found justice. Sell it, I must sell it. The moment he agreed, a floating parchment appeared next to Will's palm. With all his strength, he pressed a bloody handprint on it. After signing the contract, a colorful apple with rainbow patterns appeared in the devil's hand. Eat it, and you will gain the power of the devil. The apple appeared directly above Will's mouth. He opened his mouth and swallowed it, ignoring the disgusting taste. Will soon felt a surge of powerful strength within him. His limbs stretched, his body thinned, and a profusion of black fur appeared on his body. His head transformed into a massive leopard's, and a long tail sprouted from behind. Huh? Lin Hao, observing all this through the demon's vision, expressed a hint of surprise. I didn't expect the completion rate for this batch to be so high. After consuming the smile fruit, Will Fortson's entire body, except for his belly, remained the same. A black leopard, its belly was naturally black, so it made no difference whether it had fur or not. Interesting. It looks like this tool can be used for a while longer. Seeing the black leopard, Lin Hao had a new idea. Go, my servant, and vent your wrath. From this day forward, you will worship the great demon lord, His Majesty the Great Demon King, as you command. The Great Demon Lord, Will Fortson said respectfully, with extraordinary piety. At this moment, he had abandoned God and turned his faith to the Great Demon King. From this moment on, his life and death would be controlled by the Great Demon King, Lin Hao. The darkness faded, a fleeting moment to outsiders, a flash of black light imperceptible to the naked eye. Will Fortson, now in human form, waited for the ambulance. Although his wounds had largely healed from his sudden surge of strength, and the bullet had been forced out of his body by his muscles, would the ambulance, which had finally arrived, just sit there and take thousands of dollars? That was uncapitalist. And so, ready to seek immediate revenge, Will Fortson was forcibly strapped to a stretcher by the overzealous paramedics and rushed into the ambulance. Fuck. My wounds. Will Fortson, about to break free, suddenly had a better idea. The Great Demon Lord demanded a dazzling entrance. Chapter 5 What arms dealer doesn't sell his goods to two parties? American journalists claim to always arrive at the scene before the police, with one exception, when the police are responsible. This was the case with a police shooting of a black pilot in San Francisco. By the time reporters got the news and rushed to the scene, white officer Jack Bryan had already slipped away, leaving them only to see the unconscious black pilot being carried away by an ambulance. Had Will Fortson been awake, reporters would have rushed to interview him, even paying paramedics to allow them time to interview him. You say this would delay rescue efforts? Who cares? This is a world of capital, a world of money. As long as it generates economic profit, any action is justified. And what's more, the injured person was black. The two black men previously killed by a white police officer lost time to rescue because the reporter's vehicle surrounded the scene, preventing the ambulance from entering. Instead, they spread the message, I can't breathe. Finally, the reporter, with a look of pity, lamented the harm of racial discrimination on screen, shedding a few crocodile tears, then watched the high ratings and enjoyed the TV station's bonus. The niggers died, the whites prospered, and everyone had a bright future. Young Will Fortson, unaware of the dangers of the news vultures, feigned unconsciousness because he wanted to create a big scene. The reporters who arrived at the scene, though unable to interview the individuals involved, reconstructed the events from the surrounding residents. Upon hearing that a white police officer had shot a black man, an Air Force pilot, they were instantly thrilled. Racial discrimination, excessive force, and the clash between police and the military were all sensational news. This news was bound to go viral. Hey, boss, you have to give me interruption permission immediately. Yes, big news, super big. Reporters at the scene contacted the radio station, begging their superiors to start interrupting the hot news so they could get the upper hand. In an era without superheroes, such breaking news was hard to come by. Consequently, San Francisco stations, and even other regional stations that caught wind of the news, began interrupting the events. It was 2008, and Black Lives Matter had become a trend. The Democratic Party even planned to field a black candidate in this year's election. This news naturally ignited national public opinion. Ben Carson, a renowned civil rights lawyer in New York, immediately ordered his assistant to investigate the phone calls from Will Fortson's family. He then dropped everything else and drove straight to the airport. He was determined to win the case, and no one would dare compete with him. He said, even if Jesus came, it wouldn't matter. When Ben Carson finally obtained authorization from the family and rushed to the San Francisco hospital, he found a strange atmosphere in the intensive care unit. Will Fortson's family and Air Force representatives stood in the room with constipated expressions. Surrounded by them, the patient's upper body was exposed, but the wounds were superficial, not requiring emergency treatment. Watson's Law, Ben Carson felt deceived. How could he stir up public sentiment with such a small injury? How could he leverage his reputation? His anger lasted only a second before he regained his composure and went to meet him. Mr. Will. I will represent you with full authority to pursue accountability and compensation from the San Francisco police. Tell me what you want. This fighter jet of a rooster couldn't be destroyed in my hands. The Air Force representative, unconcerned, stepped forward to carefully examine Will Fortson's wound. The edges of the torn flesh bore traces of burns and friction from the high-velocity bullet. Military life, especially in the United States, is all too familiar with gunshot wounds. Will, can you explain why your wound is so superficial? The Air Force representative was well aware of the power of the weapons used by domestic police. Their pistols were no less powerful than those used by the military. Even the wealthy New York police were better equipped with small arms than the Army. How could one practice American IAI with poor weapons? The Air Force representative's gaze deepened at the superficial wounds of 6 bullets. Young Will Fortson was inexperienced, so focused on the spectacle that he neglected the wound. Suddenly, a distant voice echoed in his mind. Confess. Lin Hao, observing all this from afar, imprinted his voice on the tool's consciousness. Initially planning to discard it after use, Lin Hao unexpectedly discovered the remarkable integrity of the creature's transformation. A close look at the hairless skin on its belly revealed it to be a fully formed Black Panther. Given this tool has potential for further development. And since he's an Air Force pilot, he could easily infiltrate the American military. In the One Piece world, the Smile Fruit is a defective product Caesar developed by imitating Vegapunk's technology. Compared to Vegapunk's demanding standards, where a transformation simply ends up being the wrong color, Caesar's defective product is simply garbage. Lin Hao, having acquired Vegapunk's technology, can even create a complete devil fruit, let alone a flawed one. It's simply a fragment removed. Furthermore, to facilitate his actions in America, Lin Hao preserved the defective product's ability to transform freely. Unlike Caesar's creations, which deformed all users and prevented them from returning to human form, the fruit is no less powerful than a full-fledged animal-type devil fruit, as evidenced by Kato's army of givers. However, the defective fruit suffers from a significant weakness. The areas where it can't transform don't receive the fruit's power. After all, they're tools for trouble. How could Lin Hao really give them flawless goods? Is the great devil a philanthropist? Inside the hospital room, Will Fortson, receiving the Demon Lord's order, glanced at the others. The Air Force representative understood, glanced around, and smiled. Please go upstairs and rest for a while. His tone was gentle, but his attitude was undeniable. A soldier who had followed him personally led the patient away. Hal, tell the doctors to keep their mouths shut, or the Air Force will charge them with endangering national security. Another soldier followed suit. Once the area was clear, Will Fortson slid out of bed with a deft movement. The Air Force representative was stunned. A living person had transformed into a gigantic Black Panther right before his eyes. Oh my God, Will Fortson had finally secured his dream of a grand spectacle. While he was preparing, pressure from public opinion and the military mounted against the San Francisco police. What fuck, Jack Bryan, who was on forced leave at home, received a call from his boss. He was furious as soon as he heard one sentence. Why should I be fired? Didn't he get back to work after a week of leave when something like this happened before? Because he didn't die. If he died, the military would just pretend. The dead are worthless. The boss on the other end of the phone was also helpless. The black guys who were beaten to death before were all garbage at the bottom of society. Now this one is an Air Force pilot. If you ignore his skin color, he is a social elite who is more valuable than us policemen. Now the military and the media are putting pressure on the chief. I even heard that a congressman who is about to run for election is standing up for him. The lawyer he hired has asked the police station for a high amount of compensation. What the hell? I want compensation. People in capitalist countries are very sensitive to money. When Jack Bryan heard that the other party dared to ask for compensation from the police station, his three views were shattered. Since when do you have to pay compensation for killing a black guy in the process of law enforcement? I told you, he's not an ordinary nigger. The boss got annoyed and gave him an ultimatum. The police department has decided to fire you. In addition, if the court supports their compensation claim, they will pursue you for compensation. After that, he hung up the phone. Fuck. Bitch. Son of a bitch. Jack Bryan smashed the phone, and his chest felt like a fire was constantly burning. A bunch of farm tools dared to threaten a white master. At this moment, he wanted to pick up a submachine gun and kill all the niggers on the street, so that they would know who ruled America. All niggers should die. Suddenly, a mass of black enveloped him, and a demon appeared in front of him. Do you want revenge? Do you want to gain the power of the devil? Hey, give me your soul. How can a qualified arms dealer not sell goods to two parties? Please collect, recommend, and read on. Reading on is the most important. Woo woo. Chapter 6. You kill the black, I kill the white, until my eyes turn red. It's unbelievable. It seems that in the eyes of San Francisco police officers, just the color of a person's skin is a threat to their lives. Human rights lawyer Ben Corenson spoke passionately at a press conference, his every fiber of his being throbbing with excitement as he faced the camera. I learned from the victim, Mr. Fordson's neighbors, that the San Francisco police were called because Ms. Allen saw smoke coming from the kitchen next door and panickedly called the police, but she didn't expect the police to not notify the fire department, but instead arrive directly with guns. What were they trying to do? Put out the fire with handguns. The most unforgivable and unbelievable thing is that these two San Francisco police officers went to the wrong room. At this point, Ben Corenson slammed the table with emotion, his heart itched. Can you believe it? Officers who responded to the call would go to the wrong location and then, despite the innocent person's repeated attempts to identify themselves, open fire anyway. Who in America would dare to call the police in the future? We white people would dare to do that. Anyway, police immunity only applies to shooting people of color. Many white reporters at the scene thought to themselves, some even expressing disapproval, their cameras clicking away. Journalists are practical, having long honed the professional ethic of saying one thing and doing another. They'll even say God is black if it means generating buzz and boosting ratings. This incident has been a hot topic in recent days, especially with the Air Force's unusually hawkish stance and even members of Congress preparing for election campaigns speaking out in support of the victim. This incident has escalated into a nationwide wave of public opinion. Massive protests are currently underway across the United States, with black groups particularly active. Equal rights groups opposing racial discrimination are also jumping on the bandwagon, further fueling the incident's popularity. In San Francisco, where the incident occurred, a large number of black people from across the country gathered and surrounded the San Francisco Police Department, demanding harsh punishment for the perpetrators. Will Fordson's prelude has been completed. Next, he will petition the San Francisco City Council to initiate a hearing against the San Francisco Police Department and specifically request the officers responsible to appear. His plan was to continually provoke Jack Bryan during the hearing, forcing him to utter even more egregious racist tirades, then escalate the conflict and kill him on the spot in self-defense. This plan, to be fair, was brimming with the naivete of youth. Will Fordson clearly saw himself as the protagonist, intent on both the limelight and the venting of his anger, completely oblivious to the possibility that the supporting characters would follow his script. The Air Force offered their assistance because they recognized Will Fordson's value, and since public opinion had already built up, they felt they should make a move. Experienced Air Force generals believed that even if the hearing went ahead, it would at best be a formality, a mere wrangling. The San Francisco Police Department might compromise, but not significantly. As for the officer responsible, he would likely be dismissed immediately, and his attendance was uncertain. The Air Force had no idea what kind of moment of glory Will Fordson was hoping for, nor did they believe that such childish scenes would unfold. Neither side anticipated the outcome, which was far from what they had envisioned. After signing a pact with a demon and receiving the power bestowed upon him by the demon lord, Jack Bryan's murderous intent was fully realized. He chose a sunny morning and appeared at the San Francisco Police Department gates, still wearing his uniform, and walked straight toward the black protesters. The police station's entrance was a stark contrast between black and white. Emotional blacks chanted slogans, while white officers lined up neatly with riot shields, occasionally engaging in physical contact. With public opinion swirling and the San Francisco Police Department at the center of controversy, department brass naturally didn't want to see further violence. So, after stern warnings and withholding weapons from the officers, the white officers remained docile behind their shields. Otherwise, in previous law enforcement situations, they would have drawn their guns and opened fire. "Hey, Jack," his colleague George was shocked to see him so boldly appear. "What are you doing?" Jack Bryan waved his hand, but kept walking. "He's the cop who caused the accident, the one who shot Mr. Will. Damn it, what does he mean? Is he trying to provoke us, bastard? Kill him." Avenge Mr. Will. As Jack Bryan had predicted, these limited-minded black men had little sense and relied solely on violence. Jack was soon surrounded by the blacks. "Oh my God, is Jack trying to commit suicide?" His colleagues in the back were stunned. "Should we help him?" someone asked. "Never mind, maybe it's his own choice," a colleague nearby shook his head. "I heard the higher-ups decided to fire him, and maybe Jack wants to express his dissatisfaction this way." Surrounded by the blacks, Jack didn't fight back at first. After a full minute, he suddenly shouted, "George, according to American law, I'm in self-defense, right?" George was stunned, then realized and shouted, "Yes, we have cameras here." Jack Bryan, in the crowd, immediately broke into a sinister grin. "Woo-ah!" A deep roar echoed from the crowd. Jack Bryan suddenly transformed into a dog man, with a white head, white fur, white limbs, and a white tail sprouting from his buttocks. This was the artificial devil fruit's dog fruit, Great Pyrenees form. Jack Bryan, originally 1.8 meters tall, transformed into a giant 2.5 meters tall. His hands, transformed into dog paws, swung with such force that the black men surrounding him were easily blown away like leaves. "Oh my God," the police officers behind him cried out in disbelief, stunned and incredulous. "What the hell is this?" The black men, surrounded by Jack Bryan, were even more terrified. "Oh my God. He's a transforming demon, run. Run!" The black men, quick to react, retreated, but Jack Bryan, intent on killing, wouldn't let go of the farm tools. Without a doubt, Jack gave chase. "Stop filming. Stop filming this," George shouted hurriedly to his colleague holding the camera. The previous incident was considered self-defense, but now it was intentional homicide. "Idiot, now's even more important to film this," the colleague holding the camera scoffed. "Such explosive, first-hand information, the TV station will definitely pay a high price for it." "Yes, that's capitalism." Will Fortson, holed up in the hospital's intensive care unit awaiting a hearing, suddenly saw breaking news on television about Jack Bryan's rampage against black people. "Dear viewers, breaking news. A dog man has appeared on the streets of San Francisco, hunting down a group of black people participating in a march." According to sources, this dog man is none other than Jack Bryan, the San Francisco police officer who previously shot and killed an African-American pilot. A small window appeared on the news screen, showing Jack's sudden transformation outside the San Francisco Police Department. Why did Jack Bryan suddenly transform into a dog man? Please continue to watch Big Mouth Henry's exclusive report from the scene. This time, the reporters arrived before the police. Because the San Francisco police were deliberately stalling, the police chief even refused to answer a call from the mayor to express his dissatisfaction. Unstoppable, Jack Bryan went on a killing spree. "Asshole," Will Fortson uttered without a word, dashing to the window. Disregarding the 10th floor height, he transformed into a Black Panther, scaled the wall, and sprinted toward the scene. The image of a Black Panther sprinting down the street, trampling on top of cars, soon appeared on television screens. At that moment, television stations across America went wild again. Not long after, Will Fortson arrived at the battlefield. "Roar," the Black Panther roared at the white dog. Their gazes met. Enemies meet, eyes etched with envy. Seeing the similar transformations in each other, they froze for a moment, then frantically called out to the mighty Demon Lord. The other had clearly also received the Demon Lord's favor. What if he killed the wrong person? Lin Hao, who had been watching the spectacle, reaping the resentment of countless souls, saw this and etched a scornful laugh into their minds. Only the strong are worthy of my favor, the two suddenly understood. Of course, this was the Demon Lord. Could he still be polite? With permission granted, the two men, already feuding, no longer held back. They considered this a test from the Demon Lord and took it with all their might. Jack Bryan transformed into animal form, kicked the ground with all four limbs, and lunged at Wolfortson. Only his belly was hairless. One black, one white, the two figures collided in midair, their immense force creating a roaring sound. The two animals were of similar size, over 3 meters long and over a meter tall, and their movements were fierce and powerful. When Lin Hao bestowed the fruit upon them, he also added some moves and training points to their memories, allowing them to fight more fiercely. Otherwise, humans who had just consumed the animal fruit wouldn't be able to perfectly imitate the animal's movements. A less aggressive fight would result in fewer casualties and a less significant gain. But even Lin Hao hadn't anticipated the unexpected surprise these two creatures would provide him. After a few collisions, they distanced themselves. Turning around, Jack Bryan found himself back with a black group, and many fearless white people appeared beside Wolfortson, holding up their phones and filming continuously. The black and white looked at each other, and suddenly they had a tacit understanding. The Great Pyrenees and the Black Panther began to deliberately expand their range of activities, respectively breaking into the black and white groups watching the fight. With a twist of the waist, a move of the legs, and a casual wave of the tail, a large number of blacks and whites were accidentally injured by both sides. Jack Bryan was determined to kill all the blacks, and when Wolfortson saw him do this, he was naturally angry and retaliated in the same way. The two guys seemed to have opened the door to a new world. After colliding with each other, they used the force to retreat to their original position, and then wantonly injured the spectators. You kill the blacks, I kill the whites, and I kill until my eyes turn red. Lin Hao, who was watching the show, was stunned for a moment. Okay, you learned it by yourself. Chapter 7 Reactions from all parties. At Trident headquarters, SHIELD, Level 7 Agent Phil Coulson hurried to the director's office, clutching a tablet. Having recently been temporarily promoted to Level 8 clearance, he was incredibly motivated to work, convinced this was a surefire way to promotion and a raise. He knocked on the director's door. Behind the desk sat a one-eyed man wearing an eye patch, his dark hair so shiny that even a fly would have skidded on it. Director, this is an emergency. Coulson handed over the tablet. Take a look at this. The screen showed the black and white war unfolding in San Francisco. Nick Fury was startled and asked hurriedly, where? Coulson replied, San Francisco. Seeing the Black Panther and White Dog, clearly larger than normal animals, Nick Fury immediately realized, are they superpowered? Yes. Coulson clicked on the screen, showing the commissioner another edited document. The White Dog's name is Jack Bryan, a San Francisco police officer. By searching local surveillance footage, I discovered this Black Panther leaping from the inpatient ward of a hospital, and thus identified him. Here are their details. Notify the technical team and have them analyze the two individuals' physical qualities based on the destructive power seen in the video, Nick Fury ordered hastily. I notified them before they arrived, Coulson said, presenting a treasure as he clicked on another document. This is the preliminary analysis report that just arrived. Well done, Nick Fury praised with a smile. You see, leaders have to be able to paint the rosy picture, otherwise, how can they motivate their subordinates? As for when to deliver, you're not going to actually do it, are you? Analysis shows that these two animals far surpass Black Panther and Great Pyrenees in both speed and strength. Furthermore, they were repeatedly struck by speeding cars during the battle, yet the footage shows no signs of injury. Coulson repeatedly played close-up footage for Fury to watch. Without hesitation, Nick Fury ordered, go there immediately and bring them back. Going from the East Coast is a bit slow, and this Black Panther is an African-American soldier. The military will likely arrive before me, Coulson enthusiastically suggested. Why not send someone from the Los Angeles branch? No, Nick Fury flatly refused. They were just two relatively large animals. While human transformation into an animal was certainly unusual, if they didn't demonstrate greater value, they would simply be experimental material. SHIELD had plenty of similar material. The Los Angeles branch had more important tasks on their plate. Hasn't the bait taken yet? Coulson asked in surprise. Has SHIELD given up on North America? Is that a question you should be asking? Nick Fury's expression immediately changed. Boss, I have level 8 clearance now, Coulson said, his face full of resentment, like a little girl who had been cheated on by a scumbag and turned her back on him. Nick Fury feigned a cough and replied gently, Zheng Xian is a powerful figure. He's unlikely to abandon North America, just like we're unlikely to abandon the Far East. SWOR will definitely send a new head to reorganize their intelligence network. Boss, if I catch this guy, can you make me a full-time employee? Coulson said eagerly. Haha, if you can really catch him, I might consider giving you a level 9 clearance. Nick Fury's words were not just empty promises. They also reflected a part of his true feelings. In the years since he took office, he had clashed with Zheng Xian across the ocean many times and felt deeply that his colleague was a formidable opponent. This time, after years of preparation, he had finally wiped out SWOR's intelligence network in the Americas, especially in North America. Even so, he didn't capture the former head of SWOR in the Americas alive, only a corpse was found. Nick Fury strongly suspected that SHIELD had other networks independent of the American branch that he hadn't eliminated. After all, it was common practice for agents to have 3 burrows. Nick Fury himself practiced this. Hurry, get out there in the Quinjet. Try to get an African-American pilot if you can. At least bring this San Francisco police officer back. SHIELD witnessed a black versus white battle unfolding on the streets of San Francisco. Wakanda, far away in Africa but capable of global surveillance, also witnessed a conflict. Father, Wakanda's current Prince T'Challa and Princess Shuri burst into King T'Chaka's office. Shuri swung the Kimoi bead on her wrist, projecting satellite footage for her father. T'Challa pointed at the Black Panther on the screen and asked anxiously, Father, this Black Panther is actually a human transformed. Its speed and strength are almost as fast as mine after taking the heart-shaped herb, and he's black. Could it be that the Black Panther God has chosen us? Nonsense, T'Chaka raged. The Black Panther God only protects us, the people of Wakanda. This Black Panther is clearly a pagan conspiracy, but it really looks like him. Shut up, T'Chaka glared at his son. The unfortunate child was so politically unwise. How could he possibly say such a deadly thing? The Black Panther God was a Wakandan deity. What if this Black Panther outside was connected to the Black Panther God? What would they do? All previous Black Panthers were just ordinary people who had taken the heart-shaped herb to enhance their physical strength. No one had ever been able to fully transform into a Black Panther. Furthermore, this Black Panther was tall and massive, and its strength and speed were comparable to those who had taken the heart-shaped herb. Comparing them, who would the people believe was the Black Panther God's vassal? Would the other tribes seize the opportunity to stir up trouble, inciting the people to question the legitimacy of the T'Chaka family's rule? If the divine right of kings were destroyed, their legal basis for ruling Wakanda would vanish. Furthermore, the Black Panther God was real. What if he decided this shape-shifting leopard was more pleasing to his eyes and personally appeared to designate him as his true vassal? That would be a real disaster. The thought of this dire outcome darkened T'Chaka's face. It was already the bottom of the pot? That was fine. Siri, block this video immediately. No servers in China are allowed to keep it. T'Chaka adopted a crisis-proof approach. Send no one. Use hidden channels to send mercenaries to America. We must eliminate this leopard. As king, T'Chaka possessed both courage and action to safeguard his royal authority. However, to prevent the news from leaking and the Black Panther God from noticing their actions, he absolutely could not mobilize domestic forces. Only the 3 of us know about this, and you are not allowed to disclose it to anyone. T'Chaka did not forget to instruct his children, not even your queen mother. Okay, Shuri agreed decisively. Father, let's pray to the Black Panther God. The honest child T'Challa understood what his father meant, but he couldn't bear it. This behavior was contrary to his past devout belief in the Black Panther God. The Black Panther God is sleeping, there is no need to disturb him with such a small matter. T'Chaka glared at his son again. Why can't this stupid son grow up? He is not as sensible as his younger daughter. Lin Hao, who is far away in the manor in San Francisco, is waiting leisurely. He threw a stone into the water, and now is the time to sit and watch the ripples. But before the waves rise, he's going to enjoy the joy of the lottery. Please collect, recommend, and read. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 8, The Sword Manual of Exorcism in Half of Whitebeard's Face. Entering the study, the little devil materialized and opened its mouth. Lin Hao stepped inside. This space was truly magical. When he first entered, only less than 10 square meters of it was illuminated, the rest shrouded in darkness. As the little devil journeyed through it more and more, the area covered by the light grew larger and larger. This wasn't inside the little devil's body, but more like a separate dimension, with the little devil merely the key. Lin Hao had once taught the little devil to stuff food into his mouth when traveling to other worlds, always returning with a few local specialties. This nearly frightened the little devil into autism. This space didn't follow the little devil into other worlds, thus thwarting Lin Hao's plan to hide there and travel to other realms. Upon entering, Lin Hao first examined the resentment of living beings the little devil had recently absorbed and found it was enough for 100 journeys. Creatures die constantly in this world, and some experience anger, sorrow, fear, and resentment, but none of these negative emotions were related to Lin Hao. The little devil can only absorb the resentment of living beings that have a karmic connection with Lin Hao. Simply put, Lin Hao must participate in the process, and the rewards are based on the level of his participation. Killing or attacking someone personally naturally receives a 100% reward. Placing a virus, using gadgets to destroy the world, and so on all count as personal involvement. The next highest reward is the resentment of living beings caused by the destruction contracted with the little devil. The greater the karmic connection and the higher the level of participation, the more rewards are received. The black versus white incident on the streets of San Francisco, which resulted in the deaths of numerous bystanders, represents the highest level of resentment. Furthermore, the nationwide protests sparked by racial discrimination continue to provide Lin Hao with energy. While indirect participation means the individual share is modest, the sheer volume of participation is significant. This trend is expected to continue for some time, a steady stream of benefits. Therefore, America is Lin Hao's blessed land. Back in China, he'd toil tirelessly for 6 months and still struggle to muster the energy for a 100-draw streak. He'd also have to rack his brains to come up with new tactics to attack people, otherwise his already numb colleagues wouldn't react at all and wouldn't be friendly at all. Sitting cross-legged on the ground, Lin Hao silently chanted a meditation mantra before commanding the little devil, "Begin." The little devil vanished with a whoosh, then reappeared in the blink of an eye, its 2 short arms clutching a nugget of gold, which had dropped to the ground. Lin Hao reached out to touch it, and his mind instantly registered, a nugget from Journey to the Center of the Earth. He felt no wavering, at least it was enough money. Then, a continuous crackling sound filled his ears, and a large number of items appeared before Lin Hao: Hu Yifei's leather jacket, Xiao Anzi's homework book, Qi Tongwei's sniper rifle, Gao Qiqing's copy of The Art of War, and Su Hongdao's black stockings. Lin Hao silently put the jacket and stockings aside. Don't get me wrong, he just wanted to use them to reminisce about his lost youth. He casually tossed the sniper rifle into the trash. If you were back in the Daking dynasty, it would have been useful. This was free America, where there was no shortage of weapons. Suddenly, the little devil tossed out an old cassock. Lin Hao reached out to pick it up, his expression strange. Turning the robe over, he saw 8 large characters gleaming on the lining. To practice this skill, you must first castrate yourself. It was the sword manual of exorcism from the smiling, proud wanderer. When the little devil returned with another piece of jade, Lin Hao grabbed it and asked, "How did you get this?" Oh, you mean in a cave, there was a middle-aged man, naked, hesitating, holding a dagger, and then you brought this back. Holy, master it seems you have me to thank. Lin Hao smiled unkindly. Lady Ning should thank me more, but I'm unavailable. Otherwise, Lady Ning would have to answer for me. No, chirp, chirp, the little devil said cheerfully. You can't do that. Listen to me sing. Lin Hao laughed and began, cut, 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 cut. Auntie sucks my little dick, he. After laughing, the little devil continued to scoop up more goods, and a huge pile of strange things appeared in front of Lin Hao. Suddenly, the little devil returned, clutching a small porcelain bottle, his face aggrieved. Seeing Lin Hao, he cried, woo woo woo, there was a man wearing a cloth tiger on his head and he wouldn't let go, so you only got this bottle, woo woo woo, don't be sad. Next time you see him, just stab him with a fork. Lin Hao consoled, reaching for the small porcelain bottle. Fuck, from the deer and the cauldron, I love a piece of firewood. Lin Hao inexplicably popped into his mind a line, I can't even stand the smell of this thing, let alone touching it. So he deserves first place. Interesting. It's definitely Stephen Chow. Waving the little devil to continue his journey, Lin Hao suddenly realized the Bixi sword manual lay to his left and the I love a piece of chai in his right. He fell silent. What does this mean? Is this a test for me, Director Lin? What a joke. What cadre couldn't withstand such a test? Lin Hao discarded his robes with a solemn expression and tucked the small porcelain bottle into his pocket. The next items were no surprises, all mediocre, without a hint of excitement. But this was normal, something Lin Hao had grown accustomed to, otherwise, he wouldn't have only managed to find 3 useful items in all these years. Universal capsule, yes, 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 you're so noble. If you have the guts, throw away your panties too. The 100-draw session quickly ended. Lin Hao collected the few items he liked and had the cleaning android sort the rest of the junk and sent it to the storage area. Sigh, the little devil said, but he held Lin Hao back. Haven't you had enough fun? Lin Hao glanced at the remaining energy. It was probably enough for the little devil to travel through time a dozen times. Alright, let's use it all. If you were still in China, Lin Hao would have been very frugal, but with a steady stream of data still trickling in from the back end, he didn't bother with these scraps. He waited a moment longer, as the little devil excitedly traveled through time, bringing back a dozen unremarkable items. Just as Lin Hao was about to call it a day, the little devil, on his last journey, unexpectedly returned with a small portion of a burning face, even lava dripping from the edges. A half-moon beard covered his face, a singed eye lodged in its socket. This, Lin Hao immediately stepped forward to take it. It was the face of Whitebeard from One Piece. As expected, the moment Lin Hao touched it, a surge of energy and a chaotic stream of memories quickly flooded into his body. Having copied the brain fruit, Lin Hao quickly digested Whitebeard's memories and then sensed 3 different powers within the energy. These are Armament Haki, Observation Haki, and Conqueror Haki. While their quantity is small, their quality is exceptional. Years ago, Lin Hao received Vegapunk's memories, discovering the 6 styles and the training methods for reclaiming life within them. Through diligent practice, he finally mastered them. While the 6 styles are claimed to be a confidential training method within the world government, a secret known only to one person is truly a secret. Countless individuals have practiced them over the years, inevitably leading to capture, torture, and even betrayal. Furthermore, there are pirates who have infiltrated the Navy as undercover agents and risen to the rank of Vice Admiral. In the pirate world, the 6 styles are like the 3 styles of Haki. At a certain level, they're no longer secrets. Despite mastering the 6 styles, Lin Hao had never been able to awaken the 3 styles of Haki. Unexpectedly, today, he unexpectedly obtained half of Whitebeard's face, directly absorbing all 3 powers. A small amount doesn't matter, as long as the issue of having and not having is resolved, it can be increased through practice, just like the chi of the Dragon Ball universe. Whitebeard's half of his face offers much more than just these benefits. Should I copy the trait? Lin Hao thought. Trait? Lin Hao was startled, then realized, does the power of the tremor fruit remain? Copy, Lin Hao thought without hesitation. After all, copying an object's trait only preserves its properties, not its negative effects. For example, after gaining the power of the brain fruit, Lin Hao's head didn't continue to grow larger, nor did he lose his ability to swim, and he wasn't afraid of the sea. This was also why he didn't consume the artificial azure dragon fruit. He'd already started to make his mark, so how could he not have some foresight? In an instant, Lin Hao gained the power of the tremor fruit, but like the 3-color Haki, the amount was minimal. He extended a finger, watching it vibrate, and fell silent. What the hell can this do? He said, his gaze shifting downwards. Damn, I'm not the one enjoying this. A little frustrated, Lin Hao walked over to the lab bench and began extracting Whitebeard's bloodline while it was still hot. This was another tool worth cloning. He wanted Whitebeard to continue having sons in the Marvel world. Chapter 9 I Love a Stick. It was another early morning, and Lin Hao was working out in the Manners gym. He held a 2-ton metal dumbbell in each hand, wearing a specially made weighted lining, with metal particles strapped to his thighs and calves. Even his shoes were weighted. He jogged up and down, lifting the dumbbells in both hands. After arriving in America, Lin Hao no longer had to punch in and out of the office as before. Every day, he would use a video call to remotely guide Yu Zhen, an assistant in the technical development department, solving a few research problems for him. This gave him more time for practice and cultivation. Lao Lin, a voice in broken Chinese called from outside. A man in his 30s entered Lin Hao's gym and spoke in an oddly accented Chinese. I guess you're in the gym, stop working out. Something bad's happening. This man was Bruce Lee, a third-generation American-born Chinese. His family had settled in San Francisco after World War I. They had some assets, but over the past 30 years, they had capitalized on their motherland's economic rise to amass a vast fortune, now totaling tens of billions of dollars. Bruce is of mixed Chinese and American descent. His father is Chinese, and his mother is the daughter of a small California tycoon, a classic example of a familial marriage. His mother gave him the name Bruce, and his grandfather also gave him a proper Chinese name, Li Heng, taken from the Yuan Heng Li Jian hexagram in the I Ching. Yes, it's the name of an emperor. While Bruce Lee wasn't destined to be an emperor, he was a playboy born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He eagerly engaged in combat as soon as his body parts became usable, leading to a tendency to feel powerless even before middle age. A few years ago, by chance, he met Lin Hao, a recent arrival in San Francisco. He discovered that Master Lin possessed miraculous Kigen, allowing him to gallop uncontrollably. Suddenly, he had a ton of friends. What? Did you hook up with Anne Hathaway? Lin Hao continued his training. Bruce is the type who becomes more playful as his skills improve. He'd always relied on spending money to pick up girls, but recently, he announced he'd fallen for a celebrity and was planning to formally pursue her. Lin Hao took one look at the photo and realized it was Anne Hathaway. He thought to himself, Bruce, you're not the Bruce from the next universe who went into the alley. How can you rely on your ability to seduce Catwoman? You're a superboy who finished right after entering the competition. What kind of ability do you have? I'm still pursuing Anne. I didn't come here today for this. Bruce ran forward excitedly, trying to take the dumbbell from Lin Hao's hand, but it didn't move. There's a nice dinner in Los Angeles tomorrow. The organizers will invite Tony Stark. Stark Industries stock has been skyrocketing recently. The consortium here in California is probably planning to get involved. Is it meat or vegetables? Lin Hao was a little interested. The first half will be vegetarian, but the second half will be cleared. Once the reporters leave, it'll turn to adult content, Bruce chuckled. To please Tony Stark, they'll spend a fortune. They'll have the youngest, most beautiful girls in Hollywood. Lin Hao paused his jogging, gently set down the dumbbells, and walked over to Bruce, holding out his hand. Where's the invitation? Hey, how could you forget your Master Lin's invitation? Bruce smiled a smile that every man understands, and handed him one. Your name isn't just known in San Francisco anymore. The entire upper crust of California wants you back to help liven things up. That's perfect. I've come up with something new. Lin Hao removed his weights and led Bruce to the study. From the safe, he solemnly removed a jade vase carved from jade. The emerald green jade vase was intricately carved with cloud patterns that seemed to flow in the sunlight. Lin Hao pulled the cork from the vase, and a faint fragrance emanated. Bruce, standing beside him, took just one sniff and immediately felt a surge of warmth rising from his lower abdomen, just like the feeling he had when he first saw the beautiful maid bathe over a decade ago. Oh my god, Bruce swiftly snatched the jade bottle, revealing a dark red pill inside. Just smelling it is so bad. What if you swallow it? I don't recommend it. This pill is too potent. It's best to use an incense burner to release its scent. This pill alone could power an entire banquet. After Lin Hao received Stephen Chow's I love a stick of firewood, he immediately understood the composition of the drug and then analyzed the preparation method. This little pill truly lived up to Stephen Chow's praise. Just the smell of it was unbearable. I'll take the pill first. I need to talk to the organizers. With such a great gimmick, this banquet is sure to be a huge success, Bruce said eagerly. Remember not to swallow it, or I'll find you at the morgue, Lin Hao warned. I know. I'll pick you up tomorrow. Meanwhile, across San Francisco, Phil Coulson, who had rushed from New York, arrived with a small team at the scene of the Black vs. White incident the previous evening. They had actually arrived the previous night, but had found nothing. Will Fortson had been taken away by the Air Force. Jack Blaine, quick-witted, had avoided capture by the military, but he also hadn't returned to the San Francisco Police Department. Upon arrival, Coulson led his men straight to Blaine's home, but found nothing. He had to send someone to negotiate with the Air Force while cordoning off the scene, hoping to find something of value. This was a crucial time for him to be promoted to level 8 special agent. If he returned empty-handed, how could he expect a promotion or a raise? And surprisingly, he actually found something. "Boss, you need to see this." Biochemist Gemma Simmons approached Phil Cowlson, holding a tablet. "We found some hair at the scene, from a black panther in the Great Pyrenees. Analysis revealed that the cells within these hairs are exceptionally active. Their genetic chains are neither animal nor human. Rather, their primary genes are still human, but enhanced in some way. Most amazingly, their genes can be broken down and reassembled. Their cells contain a powerful energy. I tried using technology to catalyze this energy, and their hair actually changed color and became even tougher. Even my sharp alloy knife couldn't cut it." "You're saying," Cowlson realized, "that these two psychics can evolve further?" "Yes, they have the potential." Gemma Simmons handed Cowlson 2 glass test tubes, each containing a hair. The colors weren't simply black and white, they were vibrant. The black and white were tinged with dark red and bright purple, respectively, blending seamlessly, creating a more graceful and noble look. Upon closer inspection, wisps of smoke like flames could even be seen rising from the hair. After personally testing the hair's toughness, Cowlson looked at Simmons eagerly. "Can you crack the secret and create the corresponding potion?" Simmons said with a reserved smile. "Although Professor Abraham Erskine is one of my idols, boss, I'm still very young." Abraham Erskine was the scientist who developed the Captain America serum. After his death, countries around the world have invested vast resources in attempts to replicate it, but over the years, no one has succeeded, and each serum has its own shortcomings. The Super Soldier Serum is also a serum without the potential for evolution. After use, the power is fixed, and unless there is another opportunity, it will remain the same until death. Captain America is able to become stronger when facing stronger opponents because he is Marvel's own son, possessing the officially recognized strongest will and representing the American spirit. Would the screenwriter dare to let the American spirit lose? Now a superpower with the ability to evolve again has emerged, the value of which is immeasurable. How could Simmons, a newbie, dare to boldly claim to crack its secret? Send more people immediately and find Jack Bryan. I originally thought it was just an ordinary big dog, but I didn't expect it to evolve further. Its importance has increased instantly. Please collect, recommend, and read it. Whether it can pass the signature depends on you. Chapter 10, even more eye-opening than eye-opening. The next day, Bruce Lee visited Lin Hao's estate again. The two drove to the Lee family's airport outside San Francisco and boarded a private jet to Los Angeles. The party was held in an ancient seaside castle, not far from San Pedro Bay, home to Hollywood. It was clearly the perfect location for a party. The organizers hoped to use the event to signal the intersection between the Los Angeles Consortium and Stark Industries, so they invited numerous reporters for formal publicity. The event naturally became a dazzling fashion show. Numerous Hollywood celebrities, both male and female, seized the opportunity to vie for the spotlight on the red carpet in front of the castle, their smiles sincere on the surface, their witty remarks rife. Many people here don't have invitations, they're just here to bask in the spotlight, Bruce Lee explained to Lin Hao from the car, smiling. Any public party is bound to have these people flocking to it. This is Vanity Fair, Bruce exclaimed, his expression akin to Mr. regretting founding Alibaba. Lin Hao had attended many similar banquets over the past 5 years, both vegetarian and vegan. Of course, he'd previously been served by a cyborg, but now he was attending in person, as he wouldn't touch his former female companions. The two of them rode in a discreet luxury car to the side entrance of the castle, the true entrance for the guests. By then, the clamoring crowds at the main entrance were being cleared out, leaving only a handful of willing and invited celebrities to the back half. The rest, even if they tried, were ineligible. However, today's guest of honor was a surprise. Although Tony Stark knew the rules, he still chose to shine in the spotlight. He just loved it. The organizers were left with no choice but to lead the guests to the main entrance to greet them. Bruce Lee and Lin Hao were among them. Stark Industries holds a pivotal position in the Marvel Universe, particularly the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which began with Iron Man. Unlike reality, in the Marvel Universe, Stark Industries holds a near monopoly on the supply of high-end weaponry to the U.S. military. Thanks to two talented weapons designers, Howard Stark and Tony Stark, Stark Industries' dominance in the weapons manufacturing industry is virtually unchallenged. This is why, when Tony announced the closure of Stark Industries' weapons manufacturing division, the stock price plummeted, akin to the sudden bankruptcy of the nation's top 10 conglomerates. California conglomerates, eager to curry favor with Tony Stark, resorted to putting on a happy face. Bruce Lee also wanted to join in, but unfortunately, he wasn't even qualified for a front row seat. While a fortune of tens of billions of dollars might sound substantial, it represents the accumulation of generations of the Lee family. Bruce Lee's available cash was less than Lin Hao's. Compared to his neighbor, this Bruce was indeed a bit shabby. However, Bruce and Lin Hao, standing beside him, caught Tony Stark's eye with their unusually Asian features. Wow, it seems California is still quite open-minded. The news a few days ago almost made me think dark-skinned people here were afraid to leave their homes. Tony stepped forward and extended his hand to Lin Hao. This was their first meeting, and it certainly wouldn't be their last. Tony Stark, though a playboy at the time, didn't discriminate against people of color. Compared to those arrogant, traditional corporate figures, he was quite open-minded. "Hello, my name is Lin Hao." Lin Hao shook hands and introduced himself, Singaporean Chinese, a shipping businessman. This was another identity Lin Hao had long cultivated. "For some reason, I feel like you look more like a scientist." Tony Stark stared at Lin Hao's head. Lin Hao remained calm, half joking. "Indeed, I'm a scientist dedicated to the study of life sciences." All the men around him who knew Lin Hao smiled mysteriously. Tony, a fellow researcher, instantly understood and became curious. "Really? I can't wait to see the results of your research." Tony continued to greet the others, but Lin Hao stared at his back. "Can those cursed by knowledge really sense their own kind?" Bruce sighed beside him, interrupting Lin Hao's reverie. "Tony Stark actually took the initiative to greet you." "What?" Lin Hao teased with a smile. "Are you jealous?" "Nothing. I don't manage the family business anyway." Bruce felt somewhat dejected. Even the playboy wants to prove himself. With Tony Stark's arrival, the first half of the banquet officially began. Several local financial group leaders took the stage to give brief speeches. Then, a famous Broadway musical group took the stage to accompany the performance, and men and women danced on the dance floor. At midnight, the organizers began to politely clear the venue, and those reporters and celebrities who didn't qualify for tickets were forced to leave. With the departure of the crowd, the atmosphere in the venue suddenly changed. The lights dimmed, everyone donned masks, and a group of beautiful young men and women appeared on the stage, dancing passionately. Lin Hao, also wearing a mask, carried a copper censer to the center of the venue and cast a "I love a piece of firewood" candle. Suddenly, a subtle fragrance filled the air. The atmosphere suddenly heated up. "Old Lin, I won't accompany you anymore." Bruce's blood boiled, and he embraced the two beautiful young women and went to the next room. "Wow, it seems your research is very effective." The masked Tony Stark walked over to Lin Hao and smiled, inviting him. "I have a party in New York next week. You must come." "Sure." Lin Hao accepted with a smile. The effects of "I Love a Chai" began to take effect, and the scene was in chaos, even more eye-opening than Eyes Wide Shut. Lin Hao didn't act pretentious. With his left arm around a blonde who looked like Amber Heard and his right arm around the baby-faced Emma Roberts, he headed for the bedroom. He had another mission tonight, so he had to conserve his energy, otherwise he would have to collect the 5 golden flowers. With Lin Hao's current fighting power, the two blondes quickly surrendered and fell asleep. Still worried, Lin Hao used acupressure to seal their sleep points. Yes, the same method that Yang Fen used to seal Zai Long knew. He instructed the little devil to open the mysterious space. A moment later, Lin Hao, clad in black, using his life-returning technique to transform his appearance and size, left the castle with moon steps. It was already night. Outside the castle, a military vehicle was parked, with 2 black men inside. "Colonel Rhodey, are we going to wait here until dawn?" Will Fortson, newly promoted to captain, said with a gloomy expression. Hearing the lewd music emanating from the castle while they were forced to blast the cold wind outside, who could stand that feeling? "We don't have an invitation, so we can't get in," said James Rupert Rhodes, the future war machine, often referred to as Rhodey, who was equally frustrated. "Then let's go back to the city, at least there's a hotel to stay in," Will Fortson suggested. "No, if we don't stop Tony here, who knows where he'll fly to tomorrow morning?" Rhodey knew his good friend well. "But, no buts. Don't forget you're an Air Force soldier," Rhodey said solemnly, If I can't get Tony to design you a multi-purpose weapon for land, sea, and air, General Ross will definitely find another excuse to transfer you. Transfer is fine, said the young Will Fortson, who had yet to experience the factional struggles of the American military. If you want to hunt down that green monster, I can help you submit an application, Rode said darkly. Will Fortson said, wincing at the thought of what he had seen yesterday. I'm kidding. War Machine's real name is James Rupert Rhodes, an Air Force colonel. He's often referred to as Rode, so I'll just refer to him as Rode. Chapter 11. Who is human? Who is a ghost? A bar nestled in a slum area of Los Angeles. The owner, a vodka-loving Russian, was known to the residents and regulars as a stubborn old man with a sharp tongue but a soft heart. Although he would lash out at customers who asked for credit, he would always oblige them to continue their pleas. This small bar became a popular evening hangout for the neighborhood, bustling with activity every day. Lin Hao, having flown from a seaside castle on moonwalks, stood across the street, surveying the bar. He knew the owner wasn't Russian, but rather a Chinese Russian. The bar served as an independent undercover operation for the SHIEA in North America. 6 months ago, at the end of last year, the SHIEA's American intelligence network suffered a severe blow. The branch chief disappeared, and numerous agents were killed or captured. The mastermind behind this was none other than Nick Fury, known as Black Egg. On the intelligence front, there's no right or wrong, everyone has their own side, and when they clash, it's a fight to the death. According to internal regulations of the Sword, only the head of the American branch is authorized to access this Los Angeles branch. It is activated only when crucial intelligence is revealed or when important individuals need to leave the United States, and only once. Countless unsung heroes, in a foreign land, spend their lives fulfilling a role, awaiting a wake-up call that may never come. But when the order arrives, they must abandon their homes and careers, dedicating their lives and even their lives to the great cause of the nation. Success may not be mine, but I must be part of it. The bar still exists, indicating that this hidden branch has not been activated. However, Lin Hao did not lower his vigilance. He first used his observation haki to scan the surroundings, but found no potential threats. While his observation haki, inherited from Whitebeard, is of high quality, it cannot hear the voices of all things like Roger or hear the inner voices of others like Princess Ottoheim. It can only discern the number of nearby creatures and the strength of their auras. Lin Hao's current observation haki is insufficient, covering only a 2-kilometer radius. Although Lin Hao still possessed the chi of the Dragon Ball universe, he hadn't learned the specific techniques for sensing it. Furthermore, this energy was unique to the Dragon Ball universe. Creatures in the Marvel universe might possess another life force, but it wasn't chi. At least, there hadn't been any connection between Sai and Stan Lee. Without waiting across the street, he simply glanced at the bar like an ordinary customer and headed for the bar. The bar was bustling with people and filled with smoke. The stench of sweat, body odor, stinky feet, cheap perfume, alcohol, and cigarettes converged, and even though Lin Hao had been prepared, he still frowned. He walked up to the bar and said to the bartender, "A whiskey, please." The unusual Asian face caught the bartender's eye, and he went back to his own business. The moment Lin Hao entered the bar, Grant Ward, a level 7 agent in SHIELD's Los Angeles branch, over 10 kilometers away, noticed the Asian man. "Zoom in," Ward instructed the technician at the computer. Lin Hao's new face appeared on the screen. "Search this person's profile," Ward continued. It wasn't long before the detailed profile of the Asian face was quickly found through SHIELD's information network. Ward glanced at it and saw that it was a Korean American from Arizona. The profile included a flight record showing the person had flown to Los Angeles 2 days prior. Seeing everything was normal, Ward stopped caring. Just then, a short, Asian-looking woman in a tight leather jacket entered the duty room. "Melinda, if you keep skipping work like this, I'll be hard-pressed to report to the director," Grant Ward said with a look of frustration. "I told you, you drank too much water and need to go to the bathroom." Melinda May, known as the Iron Knight, glared at Ward. During this time, the two were still in a romantic relationship. While ordinary office romances would be frowned upon by their bosses, agents, especially those frequently deployed in the field, constantly on the brink of life and death, no longer cared about casual affairs. Their superiors even encouraged them to keep things to themselves, so pretending to be a couple while on duty was perfectly acceptable. "Melinda, we're agents. We have our own priorities, Ward advised. Don't forget, you're American, no need to remind us, Melinda May replied coldly. Captain Ward, we've been keeping an eye on this bar for months, and our target hasn't appeared, another agent nearby suggested. Why not send in the pretender to stimulate this line? We might get something unexpected. Has his wound healed? Ward asked. Yes, his subordinate nodded. How were the results? The best plastic surgeon at the academy personally performed the procedure, guaranteeing an exact match. What about the accent? Our colleagues who are fluent in Chinese have already verified it, and there's no problem. Seeing Ward pondering, his agents continued to persuade him. According to them, this is just a hidden connection, and the bar owner may not have met the previous head of the SHIE. I know you want to make a name for yourself, and I do too, Ward chastised with a stern face. But as an agent, caution is paramount. We can't just wait forever, can we? The Los Angeles agents grimaced. They had been on standby for months, with no other operations, constantly ordered to wait and see. Anxiety was building within them. To make matters worse, without field work, they received no allowances, and many of them couldn't even pay their monthly bank bills on their fixed salaries. Americans generally don't save, and as agents, their daily lives are even more glamorous. With orders from above keeping them on standby for so long, many low-level agents were practically broke. They didn't care how crucial it was to SHIELD's overall strategy to cut off SHIELD's reach into North America. They only knew that if they continued like this, the bank would come knocking on their door. So, regardless of the outcome, the Los Angeles agents were eager to conclude this operation immediately, even if it yielded nothing. Just as you say, Melinda May, who had been silent until then, suddenly agreed to the Los Angeles branch's plan. May, Ward turned to look at her. If the SHIE agents don't show up, are you planning to wait here forever? Melinda spread her hands. Or do you have a better plan? Ward remained silent. If not, let the imposter try, Melinda said decisively. I'm also a level 7 agent, and I have the authority to decide the action plan. The Los Angeles agents sprang into action. They were fed up with this kind of foolish waiting. An hour later, another Asian man pushed open the door to the bar. Lin Hao, who had only been drinking and hadn't spoken to the bar owner, suddenly turned and saw the newcomer. A meaningful smile flashed across his face. Interesting, he glanced back at the bar owner, dropped a $10 bill, and walked away, passing the middle-aged Asian man who had just walked in. In the Secret Service, there are both human and demonic forces. Who is human? Who is demon? Who can truly tell until the very end? Please save this book, recommend it, and keep reading. Chapter 12, Uncle Tony never considers whether a friend has money or not. Lin Hao returned to the castle, cuddling up with two beautiful blondes to catch up on some sleep. The next day, at noon, Tony Stark boarded his private car, protected by producer man Happy. Boss, here's the information you need. Happy, sitting in the passenger seat, handed over a tablet. The person you're looking for is Lin Hao, a Singaporean of Chinese descent. His family specializes in international shipping, owning 5 100,000-ton ships and over 300,000-ton ships, totaling. Happy, you can't even recite faster than I can read. Tony rolled his eyes. Quickly scanning Lin Hao's profile, Tony tossed the tablet aside. He simply needed to confirm that Lin Hao had a track record and wasn't some random figure trying to get close to him. As for how much money he had, Tony never considered wealth when making friends. They weren't as wealthy as him anyway. Send Mr. Lin an invitation to my party next week. Tony had tasted the sweetness of last night's success. Not only was his fighting prowess impressive, but he also didn't feel the usual exhaustion after waking up. Tony suddenly had a lot of friends. Just as he was about to open the car's freezer and get a glass of revival wine, Tony was knocked over by the emergency brake. Hey, Happy rolled down the window, about to yell, when he saw a familiar black man. Rhodey, who had been waiting outside the castle all night, walked straight to the back seat of the luxury car and knocked on the window. Tony climbed up and sat down, straightening his collar, casually rolled down the window, and gave his friend a death stare. If you don't give me a good explanation, I'm going to pour this bottle of brandy up your nostrils. You had a great time in there last night, while I was huddled in a military vehicle, exposed to the cold wind all night. Rhodey pointed sternly at the military Humvee in the distance. Wow, Tony exclaimed exaggeratedly. You could call me, maybe I'll be so kind as to ask the organizers to include an invitation. Oh, my God, Rode also forced an exaggerated expression, then rolled his eyes. So Tony Stark actually has a mobile phone. Tony calmly pulled his phone from his pocket and turned it on. Sure enough, he found several missed calls, from Pepper Potts, from Abade, and the most missed calls were from his friend Rode. Trust me, this phone keeps turning itself off. Tony quickly shifted the blame. Ask Happy if you don't believe me. Producer Man nodded seriously, accepting the blame from his boss. Rode didn't bother to argue and waved to Will Fortson in the distance. Come over here. With that, he opened the door of his luxury car. Tony's car was big enough to invite a few hot girls to party. After getting in the car, Rode told Tony's driver, follow the military vehicle ahead. Hey, men, I haven't even started working yet, Tony complained, earning a resentful look from his friend. Thinking of his friend huddled in the military vehicle all night, exposed to the wind, while he himself was surrounded by women and galloping on horseback, he raised his hand and waved his mouth, signaling him to shut up. The two vehicles, one in front of the other, drove toward the Air Force Base on the southern coast, one of the most important Air Force bases on the west coast of the United States. Tony, a military acquaintance, passed through the checkpoint with a facial recognition scan. When they reached the training ground inside the base, Rode instructed Will Fortson, transform. Let Tony see it firsthand and record your data. Will had heard of the Playboy and knew he was a talented weapons designer. The opportunity to have him design a weapon for him was too good to pass up. So, Will took off his uniform and transformed into a 3-meter-tall Black Panther. Great, I like this trick, Tony approached with curiosity, patting the Panther's muscles. The black versus white incident on the streets of San Francisco had long been reported throughout America. Tony had read the news and didn't doubt its authenticity, simply speaking casually. Switch to orc form, Roddy continued. Will instantly transformed into a 2-meter-tall orc. As you can see, Will can freely switch between human, beast, and orc forms. Beast form significantly enhances his speed and agility, while orc form increases his strength and defense. Roddy allowed Will to fully demonstrate his physical abilities in front of Tony, while Tony ordered Happy to fetch his portable workbench. While Tony wasn't known for his achievements in biology, that didn't mean he didn't understand it. Moreover, curiosity about the unknown is a fundamental quality of a successful scientist. Most amazingly, there's a powerful energy hidden within his cells. Roddy showed Tony another analysis report and ordered a catalyzed Black Panther hair. That's so cool, Tony marveled at the vibrant hair in the test tube. It's actually flaming. After reading the test report on the hair, Tony understood. No wonder you came to stop me. Tony Stark's appearance fee was exorbitant. If it were just a physical prowess Black Panther had just demonstrated, it wouldn't have been worth the military's expense. However, the new research report had elevated the Black Panther's value. Based on the data, if Will could fully unleash his inner energy, his physical attributes would far exceed Captain America's records. If we could analyze the source of his superpowers and even develop a corresponding serum. Sorry, I'm an arms dealer, not a biology expert, Tony shrugged. I understand. We just want you to design a weapon specifically for Will that maximizes his abilities, Rode said, representing the Air Force. Just like the shield your father once made for Captain America. Why didn't you tell me earlier? If you need a shield, I'd give you one for free, Tony teased. We want you to design a versatile weapon suitable for use on land, sea, and in the air, across a variety of complex terrains, Rode stated sternly. There was no way around it. Will Fortson belonged to the Air Force, but their existing equipment didn't allow him to fully utilize his physical potential. They were pilots, not bayonets. General Ross, who had been in charge of the Super Soldier project, immediately approached the Air Force to request him. However, recognizing Will's potential, the Air Force was reluctant to let him go. If they let him go now, future research findings would be sidelined, waiting for distribution from higher-ups. To secure this valuable opportunity, the Air Force resorted to paying a heavy price, forcing Rode to request Tony Stark design a suitable weapon. The other requirements were exorbitant, but the bottom line was that it had to be able to fly, so that Will could legitimately be considered an Air Force member. Haha, I might as well give him 2 white wings so he can pretend to be an angel, Tony said, turning away after hearing the Air Force's request. Well, we have a plan of our own that might give you some inspiration, Rode said, having to lower his requirements again. He sent for a confidential document, codenamed Falcon, This plan is immature and lacks both defense and attack capabilities. Could you add some armor to key areas and equip it with powerful weapons, armor? Tony peeked, a sudden inspiration coming to mind. Lin Hao's butterfly-like flapping wings ultimately affected the protagonist of this world. Meanwhile, a transport plane, maintaining its invisibility status, sped across the Pacific at high speed. Chapter 13, Special Agent Artifacts, Den Mushi and Life Cards. In the director's office, at the Ring Fortress, Zheng Xian walked to the bookshelf and pulled out different books in a pattern. The bookshelf opened to reveal a metal door. A camera on the door shone, scanning Zheng Xian's irises. A metal plate with a concave handprint popped out. Zheng Xian placed his right hand on it and felt a slight tingling sensation. The plate had collected a drop of his blood. A moment later, after verifying the bloodline's identity with the database, the door opened. Behind the door was a spiral staircase, approximately 15 or 16 meters high. The staircase monitored Zheng Xian's weight and gait rhythm. If the comparison was inconsistent, the downward passage would be completely sealed, and a barrage of lasers would be emitted from the walls. After ascending the staircase, Zheng Xian arrived at two tall storage doors. To either side stood two giants, nearly 7 meters tall, with slender legs and burly bodies, wearing barrier hats. It was none other than the pacifist, a replica of Lin Hao using Vegapunk's technology. A pure robot, devoid of emotion, it possessed not only impressive physical prowess but also the ability to fire lasers. The importance of a place guarded by two pacifists was obvious. Sensing footsteps, the pacifist at the door raised its head, scanned Zheng Xian again, and after confirming his identity, turned and opened the 10-ton metal doors on either side for him. Behind the doors lay a completely metal-clad warehouse, equipped with its own drive system and independent power supply, allowing it to be completely detached from the ring fortress if necessary to preserve the contents within. After a challenging journey, Zheng Xian finally arrived at his destination. Inside, he found rows of metal racks housing the identification files of 150,000 SWA agents. In addition to the paper files, each agent's file also contained a square glass container. The container consisted of two layers. The lower layer contained a collection of nails and hair, while the upper layer held a single sheet of white paper, which shifted constantly. The endless expanse of white paper stretched as far as the eye could see. Some were pristine, while others were blazing. Some were even half-burned, leaving the glass tanks filled with ash. An outsider witnessing the scene would undoubtedly be astonished. No matter how one looked at it, the oxygen supply within the sealed glass tanks was insufficient to sustain such prolonged combustion. Even more remarkable was the fact that some of the paper, apparently completely burned, was slowly recovering. Zheng Xian walked without stopping, approaching one of the metal racks with familiarity. Gazing at the completely ash-covered paper within the glass tank, Zheng Xian pulled out a grayish-white snail and dialed 12,138, Great Demon King. The Den Mushi emitted a unique biowave that swiftly penetrated the ring fortress and crossed the ocean, arriving at the San Francisco beachfront estate. Lin Hao also had a grayish-white snail nearby. Upon sensing the same wave, it immediately raised its head, and two beams of light shot from its eyes, projecting onto the wall. Cheng Yi's life card has been completely burned, with no sign of recovery. In the video, Zheng Xian aimed the snail at the glass tank, filming the scene before turning back to himself. If your technology is flawless, then he should have already perished. Unless this universe's goddess of death personally blocks it, or he's traveled to another parallel dimension, my technology cannot be cracked. This is the confidence that comes from inheriting Vegapunk's memories and the power of the brain fruit. The life card and Den Mushi technology all originated from the world of pirates. In the Marvel universe, no one except Lin Hao has ever heard of them, so how could they possibly be cracked? Due to the need for communication between agents, the secrets of Den Mushi are still known to many within the SHIE agency. Each branch manager abroad carries a Den Mushi disguised as a normal snail, and special undercover agents also possess one. Within the Ring headquarters, a highly classified communications department is dedicated to managing and monitoring the distributed Den Mushi and collecting and organizing the intelligence transmitted back. To enhance his disguise, Lin Hao removed the Den Mushi's original buttons and microphone, replacing them with voice control. This allows for voice calls, video calls, and even a video recorder, transmitting footage directly back to headquarters. The modified Den Mushi resembles a large, ordinary snail, possessing the biological characteristics of the normal snail, making it ideal for agents. Those unaware of the Dendenmushi's secrets would never guess its purpose. The Dendenmushi transmits information using unique biowaves, impervious to interception or blocking by existing technology and boasting robust anti-interference capabilities. It can function even in the idiosyncratic natural environments of the pirate world, let alone Earth. This is one of Lin Hao's most significant contributions to the SHIE, along with the life card. Unlike the limited distribution of the Dendenmushi, the life card secret is known only to 4 individuals worldwide: Lin Hao, Zheng Xian, Zheng Xian's immediate superior, and Zheng Xian's former superior. These 4 individuals are absolutely incapable of betrayal, as even if they did, they would not stand to gain anything greater than what they already have. The value of life cards to spy organizations is self-evident. Besides locating agents, they also provide accurate information on their vital status. If the life card shows signs of burning, the agent is in danger. If it burns out, the agent is dead. This technology completely eliminates the enemy's plans to send imposters to infiltrate, and can also be used to counter the enemy's tactics by sending false intelligence, severely damaging the enemy. These 2 technologies are truly invaluable tools for spies. While promoting Dendenmushi, Lin Hao demonstrated the usefulness of life cards to Zheng Xian and proposed a plan to produce life cards for all agents. Zheng Xian reported the plan to his immediate superiors, and the plan was approved. Therefore, under the guise of physical examinations, the SHIE Bureau collected fingernails and hair from all agents, including those stationed abroad and undercover agents. Lin Hao personally worked on the production, spending years to produce these 150,000 life cards. Once completed, the life cards were stored in a sealed warehouse below Zheng Xian's office, the existence of which was known only to those 4 individuals. The agent files stored here are the most comprehensive and accurate. Another archive located in the headquarters fortress is a covert operation. While the information is equally authentic, it lacks crucial information. In other words, even Cheng Yi, the former head of the Americas branch, was unaware of the existence of the life card technology at headquarters. How could they have circumvented it? A few months ago, Zheng Xian received a video call from Cheng Yi. It was Cheng Yi's last moments before his death. He briefly briefed Zheng Xian on the devastating damage to the Americas branch overnight and then destroyed the Dendenmushi. Zheng Xian didn't witness Cheng Yi's death until he immediately descended to the warehouse and witnessed Cheng Yi's life card instantly burn up. After all, the Cheng Yi seen in the video could be fake. He could be a disguised individual, perhaps a Skrull who arrived on Earth in the 1990s and was recruited by Black Sauce Egg, or Cheng Yi himself could have committed treason. Only after witnessing Cheng Yi's life card's complete destruction and receiving repeated assurances from Lin Hao that the life card technology was flawless did Zheng Xian confirm Cheng Yi's death and rule out the possibility of treason. The SHIE's American branch was severely damaged overnight, with a head killed. Such a defeat was extremely rare in Zheng Xian's decades-long career as an agent. Even with Nick Fury's formidable abilities, such a victory would have been impossible without the help of a mole. Therefore, after Lin Hao arrived in the United States, he didn't immediately contact the remaining agents who had narrowly escaped the disaster. Instead, he was busy establishing his own network. His caution was necessary, as he had witnessed Cheng Yi enter the bar with his own eyes the previous night. Please bookmark, recommend, and read on. Chapter 14 The Big Devil is just a nickname. After confirming that Cheng Yi's life card had completely burned out, Lin Hao finally confirmed that the Cheng Yi he'd seen at the bar the previous day was a complete ripoff, clearly a dagger launched by SHIELD. Even Cheng Yi, the former head of SHIELD's Americas division, was unaware of the life card's existence, let alone Nick Fury. By creating this dagger, SHIELD clearly believed SHIELD headquarters was unaware of Cheng Yi's death and was attempting to conceal it. Zheng Xian's initial internal briefing had merely stated that the Americas division had suffered a severe blow and the head had disappeared. Nick Fury, having obtained this conclusion through a mole planted within SHIELD, felt comfortable launching Operation Imposter. However, Lin Hao unmasked the imposter upon entering the bar. This presented a further challenge. Only Zheng Xian and Cheng Yi knew about this Los Angeles bar, and even Lin Hao, the new head, only learned of this hidden connection from Zheng Xian after arriving in America. So how did the imposter know? The world of spies doesn't believe in coincidences, and Lin Hao didn't believe it was a coincidence that he just walked into this bar and then encountered the fake Cheng Yi. This bar, located in a modest neighborhood, wasn't particularly famous or distinctive, and its clientele consisted largely of nearby residents, a relatively regular occurrence. Normally, there were only two possibilities: either Cheng Yi revealed the secret before his death, or the bar owner, unable to endure the years of concealment, betrayed him. However, Zheng Xian witnessed Cheng Yi's life card burn out in a fraction of a second, indicating that he died instantly, without being tortured. Could Cheng Yi have revealed the secret and then calmly met his end? What was his purpose? Since he didn't know about the life card and didn't know headquarters could confirm his death, there was no need to resort to a death spy scheme to deceive headquarters. If he truly intended to defect, he could have easily traded the secret for wealth. In this case, without any other special superpowers involved, the only possibility left was that the bar owner had already betrayed him. S.H.I.E.L.D. was using the bar owner and the imposter Cheng Yi to collude and trap the new head of SHIELD's America's branch. That's why Lin Hao had taken a special look at the bar owner before leaving the bar last night. Suspicious, he naturally wouldn't be foolish enough to approach. However, Zheng Xian soon brought him new news. Ivan's life card is almost finished. In the video, Zheng Xian arrived at a new metal rack and focused a Den Den Mushi's eye on a glass slot on the rack. The life card inside was mostly burned out. Ivan was the elderly bar owner. Zheng Xian then checked the warehouse's internal surveillance footage and saw the time when Ivan's life card changed. Since 2:21 a.m., it's very likely that he was taken away by S.H.I.E.L.D. after you left and tortured. So, Zheng Xian reassured Lin Hao, "Is your technology really flawless?" "Impossible." Lin Hao was a little annoyed. If even he couldn't travel to the pirate world himself, could someone else have done so? Even if someone did, could they be more clever than Vegapunk? Perhaps it's a self-torture tactic, or perhaps there's something we don't know about. Lin Hao controlled his emotions and thought calmly, "If Ivan hasn't defected, I will find a way to rescue him." "Don't forget your promise. Your own safety is paramount," Zheng Xian reminded him. Normally, a genius scientist like Lin Hao, mastering numerous cutting-edge technologies, would never be sent on a dangerous undercover mission in an enemy country. However, Lin Hao persisted, repeatedly applying for permission and even threatening a strike. After Zheng Xian and his immediate superiors assessed Lin Hao's financial situation and determined that the United States couldn't offer a higher price, they eliminated the possibility of Lin Hao's defection. Lin Hao was simply too wealthy. Besides the salary and special allowances he received from the SWA, as well as the bonuses he received for his numerous major inventions, Lin Hao had also partnered with several prominent domestic families to establish a technology company. By analyzing the flying car found within the Universal Capsule and combining it with Vegapunk's energy technology, Lin Hao had developed a magnetic levitation vehicle and a highly efficient, safe, energy-efficient, and clean battery suitable for widespread public access. Even before Bulma repaired Goku's spaceship and built a time machine, the battery technology in the Dragon Ball universe was sufficient to power flying cars across mountains and seas, through crowds of people. Most outrageous of all, they could be recharged using a household electrical outlet. The energy technology in the One Piece world was even more outrageous, with steam-age technology capable of powering lasers. Regardless of how outrageous it was, Lin Hao had invented such a battery. While magnetic levitation cars haven't yet been released, the new battery has directly shaken up the traditional energy structure, leading to the widespread adoption of new energy vehicles. This has benefited the entire Chinese nation, which has been unstoppable in recent years in breaking through the energy blockade imposed by international powers. Nick Fury, observing the renewed vitality of the ancient nation across the ocean, orchestrated a deliberate plan to sever the reach of the SHIELD. Because only Lin Hao could solve these unreasonable technical problems and innovate, he holds a majority stake in his technology company. This wealth cannot be measured in monetary terms, let alone the status and influence it confers within the country. Even if Lin Hao went to another country, he wouldn't have found better conditions. Furthermore, Lin Hao knew full well what America, known as the beacon of human civilization, was like. No matter how well a dark-skinned person performed there was a glass ceiling, making them nothing more than high-ranking servants. It was only because Lin Hao confessed his feelings to Zheng Xian and his immediate superiors and strongly requested to come to America that they agreed. The American branch had been severely damaged and urgently needed a strong leader, so they sent Lin Hao. As for Lin Hao's ability to protect himself, they weren't worried. The title Big Devil was originally a nickname bestowed upon him by colleagues in the Shunmiao Bureau's Technical Development Department who couldn't stand Lin Hao's torment. It was a recognition of Director Lin's professional abilities. After all, in Chinese sports, Big Devil was a nickname. Later, Lin Hao took advantage of the opportunity to go on several field missions, and Big Devil became his code name. To uninformed enemies, it was a well-deserved title. In Zheng Xian's eyes, Lin Hao was powerful enough to defeat the combined might of the Weather Witch and Saber, making him well-suited to the role of head of the Americas branch. However, this was merely Lin Hao's demonstrated combat prowess. He wouldn't reveal the existence of the little devil to anyone else. Don't worry, Lin Hao smiled at Zheng Xian. Since they're trying to hide their true intentions, I'll use a borrowed knife to kill. Coincidentally, this morning, while returning to San Francisco on Bruce Lee's private jet, his observation hacky had spotted a stealth aircraft flying at low altitude and low speed. At this point in time, only one power on Earth possessed such technology, Wakanda, the African beacon that boasted of sharing advanced technology with the world, even though MIT was merely at the elementary level. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 15 Enthusiastic Tony. A stealth transport plane hovered over San Francisco, and Wakanda's Princess Shuri was busy at her computer. T'Chaka had originally planned to secretly call in mercenaries, but when his daughter Shuri hacked into the US military system and found a report, he couldn't wait any longer. He had assumed the San Francisco Black Panthers' physical fitness was barely up to par after taking the Heartweed. While it posed a threat, it wasn't much, considering they still had their vibranium armor. Who knew it could actually evolve? Doesn't that make sense? How could a superpower evolve on its own? Everyone relies on equipment, right? Recognizing Will Fortson's potential, T'Chaka had no choice but to bring his daughter with him, determined to kill him. Shuri looked up and said to T'Chaka, "Father, we've found the Fortson family's location, pass it on to the mercenaries," T'Chaka said without hesitation. Those who achieve great things don't dwell on trivial matters. With Will Fortson in the military, a single mercenary group couldn't possibly break into the US base. Forcing him out would require some serious tactics. Soon, a group of mercenaries, who had arrived in San Francisco in batches under legal status, received word from their employer. Their leader, Hazek, immediately called his men to action. "The boss has word, let's go." They dressed quickly, loaded their weapons, and boarded 3 black vans. Of course, they couldn't carry weapons through airport security, but this was America, so what weapons couldn't be bought? Will split into 3 groups, one to capture the target's mother, one to capture his sister, and I'll personally lead the team to capture his girlfriend. "Boss, that's Nico," a fellow mercenary teased. "How could you possibly do that? You don't understand. Nico's skin is very slippery." Hazek smiled sweetly. "Hurry, and then get to the rendezvous." Will Fortson's relatives were just ordinary people. How could they stand up to these experienced mercenaries? At 10 o'clock that evening, Will Fortson, far away at an Air Force base in the south, received a call from his mother. "Is this Mr. Fortson?" Hazek asked with a smile. "Who are you?" Will Fortson was startled. "Where's my mom?" "Don't worry, your mom, sister, and girlfriend are all safe." Hazek held the phone to each of them. "Will, come save us, Mom." Will's face paled on the other end. "Mr. Fortson, our request is simple. If you return to San Francisco immediately, they'll be safe," Hazek stated. "You only have 2 hours, so hurry." With that, the call was hung up. "Asshole," Will Fortson roared. "What's going on?" Rode approached. They were in a warehouse at the Air Force Base. In the distance, a collection of weapons and industrial equipment lay. A man in a protective helmet was busy, sparks flying. This man was none other than the brilliant weapons designer Tony Stark. Yesterday, his friend Rode had invited him back to the base. After hearing the Air Force's demands and seeing the Falcon design, Tony had a surge of inspiration. Tony might be a playboy, but he's also a true scientist. Once an interesting idea strikes his mind, he can't help but plunge into work, forgetting food and sleep. This is why he stayed at the Air Force Base and immediately got to work. Otherwise, Even if he'd accepted the job out of courtesy to his friend, he wouldn't have started immediately. He'd definitely wait until he returned to New York and had time. Uncle Tony has a full schedule, okay? Rode's proposal yesterday sparked Tony's thoughts on external armor, so he used the opportunity to build a simple suit for Will Fortson to put his ideas into practice. While they were busy at work, Will and Rode started arguing. "Are you kidding?" Roddy barked. "How could the base let you fly a helicopter to downtown San Francisco? My mom and sister have been kidnapped." Will panicked. "They told me to get there within 2 hours or they'll kill them. When your family's kidnapped, you should call the police." Roddy's words were barely finished when Will sneered. "Have you forgotten the feud between the San Francisco police and me? How could they possibly rescue people? They'd only collect bodies." Roddy faltered. American soldiers had little regard for the police, especially as a member of a dark race, and he was well aware of the unspoken rules of the police force, which everywhere dismissed cases involving the rights of black people. "I have to get to San Francisco right now, or my family will be dead." Will rushed towards the warehouse door, reckless. Even if leaving the barracks without permission violated military discipline, he didn't care. Even if he had to transform, he would force his way out today. "Hey, Tony," standing at the workbench, took off his protective helmet and shouted to Will, "Your toy's ready. Don't you want to give it a try? Maybe it can get you to San Francisco quickly." The last words immediately changed Will's direction, and he rushed toward Tony. Tony, Rode, from the distance, approached with a stern face. "Once the equipment is made, it's time to test it, right?" Tony said matter-of-factly. "What better way to test a weapon's effectiveness than in actual combat? Where's the stuff?" Will asked anxiously. "Happy, come help." Tony summoned the producer. The two first lifted a backpack and put it on Will, then helped him put metal protective gear on his hands and feet. Tony pointed to a button on his belt and said to Will, "Press this switch, and metal wings will pop out from the sides of the backpack. The two straps and waist belt will release armor to protect your chest and abdomen. All the sheet metal has a certain tension, so it won't limit you when you transform." Tony explained the details of the equipment to Will. "If you want to fly faster, you can activate the jet pumps on your hands and feet, but that requires some coordination. Since you've adapted to Leopard's body, your coordination should be pretty good." After donning his gear, Will rushed out of the warehouse, activated his gear, and soared into the sky. Uncomfortable at first, he swayed from side to side, nearly plummeting. But after adjusting his movements, he finally managed to take off. He immediately headed north. After reporting to his superiors and giving a heads-up to the base's radar department, Rhodey approached Tony and said with a smile, "It's rare to see you so enthusiastic. I can tell you really want to help him. How can you stop a child from saving his parents?" Tony's expression suddenly fell, filled with deep emotion. Rhodey, knowing his friend's past, reached out and patted his shoulder. Lin Hao, who had been observing all this through Will Fortson's spirit, suddenly imprinted his voice on Will's mind. "Boy, where you're going is a trap." The Demon Lord's voice remained ethereal and indifferent, with a condescending indifference. "If you don't want to die, go find some help here first." A new location suddenly popped up in Will Fortson's mind. Downtown Los Angeles, the very location of SHIELD's Los Angeles branch. He had no idea where it was, but since it was the Demon Lord's order, Will naturally followed it. So, he slightly deviated and flew towards downtown Los Angeles. Chapter 16. I don't believe he can kill all of us before his strength runs out. Los Angeles, SHIELD headquarters. Ward and Melinda had already prepared to close the net after deciding to send out a pretender. They knew this bar was a secret operation for SHIELD, and it was kept strictly confidential. They had been waiting for months for the arrival of the new head of SHIELD's America's branch. While the pretender appeared flawless, there was no guarantee the bar owner would be able to detect it. If he did, it would alert the enemy, so they had to be ready to close the net. Even if they couldn't catch an SHIELD major, they couldn't let this long-lurking agent escape. Perhaps they could extract some useful information from him. However, after capturing him and tortured him for over 30 hours, they failed to extract any useful information. The old man refused to admit he was an SHIELD agent. "Captain Ward, there's someone at the gate." Grant Ward, in the interrogation room, heard the guard's panicked voice over the intercom. "No, a Black Panther has broken in." Melinda May, receiving the news almost instantly, immediately alerted Grant Ward, "It's the Black Panther that appeared in San Francisco a few days ago. I heard Carlson is in charge of searching for these two orcs in San Francisco. Let's go and see what he's up to, Ward said, stepping out of the interrogation room. After over 30 hours of interrogation, despite every possible means, he still hadn't managed to pry open his mouth. Ward had encountered this kind of tough case before, so he was experienced. Unless he found some key information that could trigger the target's psychological defenses, there was no hope of obtaining intelligence in the short term. With no results here, and suddenly another high-value target offering itself to him, Ward was naturally intrigued. The SHIELD branch in Los Angeles was a standalone 3-story building surrounded by an iron fence, with a gated entrance and a guard post. Will Fortson, having broken through the gate, waited anxiously outside the building. Seeing Ward and Melinda leading the way out, he immediately asked, "Are you the bosses here? You don't know where this is?" Melinda's reaction was sharp. "I don't need to know," Will Fortson said forcefully. "I just need to know you're interested in me. I can work with you. As long as you accompany me to San Francisco and rescue my family, I'll grant you whatever you ask." Will didn't doubt the Demon Lord's words. Instead, he was grateful for the Great Master's hint, allowing him to prepare. "Okay," Melinda agreed without hesitation and instructed the subordinates coming from headquarters, "Prepare a Quinjet. We'll leave now." With that, she immediately contacted Carlson in San Francisco. "Carlson, the Black Panther you're looking for is with me. We'll be flying to San Francisco right away." Seeing Melinda's decisive action, Ward had no choice but to follow. Before leaving, he reminded the Los Angeles branch commander, "Be sure to keep an eye on the man in the interrogation room. Call a doctor for him. Don't let him die." "Don't worry, sir. We'll take good care of him." The branch commander knew they had no chance of claiming credit, but the agents, both high and low, were overjoyed to finally be able to return to their former seizures after months of surveillance. The Quinjet was much faster than the Fortsons' metal wings, and they soon arrived in San Francisco, where they reunited with Phil Carlson. "Mr. Fortson. Nice to meet you," Carlson said, quickly approaching Will and extending his hand. Carlson had been incredibly frustrated for the past few days. He had searched San Francisco for the other orc, Jack Bryan, but couldn't find any trace. He'd thought the operation was doomed, and his dreams of a promotion and salary increase were a distant dream, but he hadn't expected Will Fortson to approach him. "Let me introduce myself. We're from Strategic Homeland Defense. I don't care who you are." "My promise remains," Will said, with no time for small talk. "As long as you come with me to rescue my family, of course," Carlson said confidently. "America is SHIELD's headquarters. Wouldn't it be easy to deal with a few kidnappers within the country?" He was actually grateful for the opportunity these kidnappers had created, otherwise, they wouldn't have had the chance to contact Will Fortson, who is in the military. The military has strict discipline and can't let soldiers leave at will. Under normal circumstances, they don't have law enforcement authority to enter cities. Even if Will Fortson sought help from the military after his family was in trouble, it would likely be fruitless. SHIELD, however, had law enforcement authority, and they were perfectly positioned to do him a favor. After Will provided the kidnappers' requested location, Carlson, May, and Grant, 3 Level 7 agents, quickly devised a professional rescue plan. "Will, you go there alone. We'll quietly secure all the surrounding streets to ensure no kidnappers escape." It wasn't long before Will Fortson appeared at his destination. The location Hazard had designated was an abandoned factory outside San Francisco. The mercenary on guard saw Will descend from the sky and quickly called out to Hazard, "Boss, this guy actually has wings. He's flying down from the sky, bitch." Hazard finally realized, no wonder this employer is asking $1 million. He had heard about the recent racial discrimination incidents in America and had seen the black versus white incident on the news, but the employer who hired him simply told them to come to America and kill one person, offering a whopping $1 million for the job. Hazard knew the high price meant high risk, but his line of work was inherently risky, so he took the commission after a moment's deliberation. To be cautious, he brought his entire team with him. Only then did he confirm that the target was the orc from the news. Will Fortson's family had mentioned the name earlier, but Hazard, busy with his womanizing, hadn't paid much attention. It wasn't like there were people with the same name in America. Besides, after his pleasure, he'd killed the victim, so he didn't think much of it. "Let him in," Hazard gritted his teeth. "I don't believe he can kill us all before his strength runs out." Will Fortson waited until Carlson's voice reached him over the communicator, knowing they had completed the blockade and brought reinforcements. Only then did he feel at ease entering the abandoned factory. Seeing the men enter the encirclement, Hazak ordered impatiently, "Open fire." Gunfire pierced the night air, and a barrage of bullets descended upon Will. Fuck, Will was shocked and furious. The enemy had launched an attack so brazenly, clearly targeting him, without negotiation, suggesting his loved ones had been murdered. Fury overwhelmed his reason, and Will transformed into a Black Panther, claws flailing, charging forward. Following the incoming fire with relentless force, unconcerned with defense. Blood and flesh flew everywhere, and screams rang out. Harrison, Jacob, answer. As his men gradually lost contact, Hazak's fury was tempered by a touch of fear. This enemy was unlike anything he had encountered in his years of mercenary life. A mere orc had already caused them heavy losses. With his team's equipment and strength, they could successfully slaughter even a truly ferocious beast. They'd already killed numerous leopards and lions during their previous missions on the African grasslands. Hazak didn't understand that when humans truly possessed the power of wild beasts, their wisdom and strength would interact in a wondrous way, far more than the sum of human and beast combined. Chapter 17. Are you worthy of being my compatriot? The transport plane hovered above the abandoned factory, maintaining its stealth mode. Inside, T'Chaka was deeply disappointed by the mercenary's performance. He finally realized he had underestimated the Black Panther. Out of arrogance, T'Chaka had been unwilling to face him, unwilling to acknowledge his strength. Father, Shield is coming, Shuri warned. Giving up hope, T'Chaka stood up and walked to the hatch. He was clad in a vibranium armor painted like a tiger, clutching a tiger-headed helmet. This was a premeditated plan, a deception of his own. He wanted to eliminate Will, the pagan Black Panther, but was also worried about his own Black Panther god discovering the truth. So, he resorted to this deception. As long as the Black Panther god didn't mention it, he would pretend the incident never happened. From now on, all sacrifices and prayers in the kingdom would be performed by his son. That way, he wouldn't be deceiving the gods. Open the door, I'll do it myself, T'Chaka said, donning the tiger-headed helmet. Father, be careful, Shuri said, opening the hatch for him. To avoid detection from the people below, the blue tractor beam was not activated. Fortunately, the plane was not far from the roof of the abandoned factory, so T'Chaka jumped directly. Utilizing the shock-absorbing properties of vibranium and his years of feline imitation, he jerked his joints at the moment of impact, easily absorbing the force of the fall. Seeing his father safely landed, Shuri was about to close the hatch when a dark figure suddenly rushed in. The figure hadn't done anything, but Shuri felt a surge of energy in his brain, foaming at the mouth and losing consciousness almost instantly. Lin Hao, who had been waiting for a long time, finally took advantage of the parent's absence to intrude on the girl's territory. Upon entering, he unleashed his conqueror's haki, knocking her unconscious and causing her to foam at the mouth. Tisk, 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 tisk. She truly deserves to be officially recognized as a genius on par with Tony Stark. Lin Hao's hands moved swiftly, his face obsessively examining the plane's control system. This system is quite good. It took him a full 2 minutes to finally crack it. This was the combined wisdom of two irrational scientists, Vegapunk and Bulma. After hacking the plane's control system, Lin Hao immediately took off, heading for Los Angeles. Wakanda, worthy of its title as the Lighthouse of Africa, truly surpassed Earth's average technology, with a top speed long exceeding Mach 3. In less than 10 minutes, Lin Hao arrived over the Los Angeles SHIELD branch. With this decoy, the remaining SHIELD agents were no longer a concern, and they could even use mercenaries and T'Chaka to eliminate some of the agents heading to San Francisco. Yesterday morning, while returning from Los Angeles to San Francisco, Lin Hao accidentally encountered a Wakanda plane in the sky. He immediately realized that it was the artificial devil fruit in the form of Black Panther that had attracted Wakanda's attention. This was one of the thoughts that had occurred to Lin Hao after he saw Will Fortson's advanced transformation, but he hadn't expected T'Chaka to be so impatience-prone. Upon returning to San Francisco, Lin Hao waited near Will Fortson's home. Sure enough, he soon spotted the Wakanda plane. Expecting T'Chaka to strike immediately, he discovered he had summoned a group of white gloves. Lin Hao waited for dozens of hours before they finally made their move, finally taking advantage of T'Chaka's arrival to break into the plane. Lin Hao's schedule was swift. Arriving at the SHIELD headquarters in Los Angeles, Lin Hao, now sporting a transformed appearance and body shape, leaped from the plane wearing a metal mask. Without waiting for the guarding agents to sound the alarm, a surge of Conqueror's haki swept through, sending all the SHIELD agents foaming at the mouth and collapsing. Lin Hao activated his observation haki and located Ivan's interrogation room. However, he first reached the main computer room and used a pre-developed device to breach the SHIELD system's firewall, stealing all the data within. He then rushed to the interrogation room and rescued Ivan. Carrying Ivan back to the plane, Lin Hao stood at the edge of the hatch, extending his right hand and gathering all his energy into his palm. A ball of white light, the size of a basketball, gleamed brightly in the darkness. Lin Hao shook his palm and flung the ball of energy toward the SHIELD headquarters below. Unaware of the precise technique, Lin Hao could only use this crude method. Fortunately, the energy of the Dragon Ball universe was incredibly powerful. It easily penetrated the building before exploding with a bang. A fierce flame tore through the SHIELD headquarters, and a small mushroom cloud appeared in the Los Angeles night sky. Buildings and bodies were reduced to ash, leaving a crater several meters deep in its place. This is just interest. In the distance, aboard a departing plane, Lin Hao muttered coldly, "Nick Fury, I'll settle the score for sacrificing my colleagues." Even as Lin Hao flew to Los Angeles to rescue them, a fierce battle raged in an abandoned factory outside San Francisco. The mercenaries recruited by T'Chaka were veterans with years of combat experience, each one a veteran of countless battles. Hearing their companions' screams, far from frightening them, they were actually fueled by their ferocity. "Asshole, if you've got the guts, step out and fight your uncle, Barbissa." Face to face, Calson, May, and Grant each led a team of agents to the abandoned factory. Hearing the intense gunfire inside, Grant shouted into the communicator, "Calson, these aren't just any kidnappers." "Yes, that's right," Calson said solemnly. "But this is San Francisco. We can't retreat." Although this operation wasn't their mission, since they had discovered a group of unidentified armed individuals within the borders and were right there, they couldn't retreat. Otherwise, how could they live up to the name Homeland Defense? If they retreated now, Nick Fury would undoubtedly punish them later. "Stop babbling. I'll go first." Melinda lived up to her nickname, Iron Cavalry. She might have felt a little bit of pity against the Chinese, but she would show no mercy against other enemies. SHIELD agents charged in from behind, easing the pressure on Will Fortson, who was charging. After venting his anger, he regained his composure and rushed into the factory. Although his family was likely dead, Will couldn't accept it until he saw their bodies with his own eyes. Black Panther sprinted swiftly up the dilapidated staircase, quickly finding 3 bodies lying in a pool of blood in the spacious factory room on the top floor. No, overwhelmed by intense grief, Will suddenly felt his strength drain away. The pain of the injuries he'd sustained in the hail of bullets finally registering. Just as his defenses gave way, several sharp claws tore at his exposed neck. The battles he'd endured in recent days and the specialized training the military had instilled in him had heightened his vigilance. His body reflexively tilted his head to the side, and metal wings suddenly erupted from the side of his backpack, slashing at the attacker's neck. Ordinary alloys couldn't penetrate vibranium's defenses, but the strike landed squarely at the junction of the helmet and armor. The Black Panther suit Shuri had designed for Wakanda hadn't yet utilized the nanotechnology of a decade later, preventing it from being a single piece. Its joints could still be pried apart with force. At the moment the helmet and armor separated, Will Fortson caught a fleeting glimpse of black. Clutching the lacerations on his neck, Will rolled away, his eyes filled with shock as he stared at the yellow tiger. "You're black." T'Chaka didn't bother to reply. Instead, he quickened his attack, striking at Will's vitals. Vibranium claws easily shredded the armor Tony had crafted for Will, leaving Will covered in wounds in a matter of moments. "Why? Why are you trying to kill me?" Will Fortson's mind raced with confusion. "I understand a white man wanting to kill me, but you're black, aren't we compatriots?" he cried. T'Chaka, who had initially dismissed the attack, seemed provoked by the words and sneered, "Compatriots? You don't deserve to be. We noble Wakandans are the chosen people of God. How can you, a bunch of lowly serfs, truly be considered compatriots? It's because of you, this bunch of scum who deserve to be eliminated, that black people are discriminated against by whites, and even the noble Wakandans are being subjected to this indignity. How dare you so brazenly utter the word fellow countrymen?" T'Chaka, feeling the pain, crossed his arms and released a shockwave through the collision, absorbing all the kinetic energy his vibranium armor had just absorbed. The shockwave sent Will Fortson flying, and a mouthful of blood spurted from his mouth. T'Chaka swooped in, his hand a blade, stabbing Will's chest and forcibly ripping his heart out. His claws retracted, slicing and exploding the beating heart. Will Fortson breathed his last, filled with resentment and rage. Due to the contract, his soul returned to the IMS contract. Lin Hao, having reaped a large amount of soul's resentment, happened to return to the sky above the abandoned factory. Although only a tool had died, T'Chaka's "you don't deserve the surname Zhao" attitude still left Lin Hao deeply upset. Very good, the vibranium mines should have belonged to the Spear Bureau since ancient times. Please vote, collect, recommend, and read again. Woo woo woo. Chapter 18, The Arrival of Wakanda. After T'Chaka personally killed the pagan Black Panther, he heard the gunfire fading outside the abandoned factory. Knowing the mercenaries would soon be eliminated by SHIELD agents, he didn't linger, sprinting back to the rooftop to call his daughter. "Zuri, descend, open the hatch." Zuri was still dazed, foaming at the corners of her mouth. Lin Hao, responding to the call, lowered the plane and opened the hatch. Who says waiting for something to happen is useless? He'd caught a big black rabbit. Seeing the plane descend and the hatch open, T'Chaka didn't think twice, kneeling and jumping aboard. As soon as he entered the cabin, Conqueror's Haki rushed towards him. Snap! T'Chaka, clad in his vibranium armor, slammed to the floor. His armor could only absorb kinetic impact, not protect against direct attacks against a mind. Using Conqueror's Haki to knock someone unconscious is so convenient, Lin Hao liked it more and more. For an agent like him, the Conqueror's Haki's ability to cause someone to faint was truly convenient. Bricks and baseball bats are completely ineffective against a target like T'Chaka, clad in vibranium armor. However, with Conqueror's Haki, he can pounce on any opponent lacking in strength, no matter how thick their armor or how deeply they hide. Furthermore, Conqueror's Haki can be used to activate special effects, amplifying attack power. After capturing the giant black rabbit, Lin Hao flew his plane toward the Pacific Ocean. After traveling over 4,000 kilometers, he sighted a floating ring fortress at an altitude of 10,000 meters. Zheng Xian, receiving a message from Lin Hao, piloted the ring fortress and waited there. Thanks to Lin Hao's involvement, the SHIE's ring fortress is now even more advanced than in the original novel. It's powered not only by jet engines but also by levitation technology from the Dragon Ball universe. It's not only faster and more stable, but also extremely quiet. With its energy shield and optical camouflage activated, it's completely silent, leaving no trace. The plane approached the fortress's landing pad, where Zheng Xian and medical personnel were already waiting. Ivan, covered in blood, was taken away by medical personnel. Lin Hao personally carried T'Chaka and his daughter, Shuri, down. Aftershock, take the men and dismantle the plane, Lin Hao instructed the deputy director of the Technical Development Department. This plane's engine, power source, operating system, and stealth technology all have merit, understood. We'll make sure we learn as quickly as possible. Aftershock, accompanied by a group of white-coated men armed with various tools, rushed forward and quickly dismantled the Wakandan plane to its components. Are you really going to attack Wakanda? Zheng Xian asked. Do you know how much vibranium there is in Wakanda? Lin Hao asked himself, answering, an entire mountain range of vibranium ore, and it's extremely pure. Let's do it the same way. I'll play the good cop and you the bad cop. I'll go up there and stage a black ship attack, and you'll come over and shout spare the man, then we'll sign a lease agreement, splitting the vibranium 70% and 30%. You want 30%? Zheng Xian asked, surprised. 30% is his. Going through all this trouble just for 30%? Would that make me beg for food? Lin Hao acted as if giving him 30% was out of kindness. Will they agree? Zheng Xian forced an expression like the old man on the subway checking his phone. If not, I'll wake up their Black Panther god and expose what this old man just did in San Francisco. Lin Hao shook T'Chaka in his right hand. A man who dared to deceive even his own gods to maintain power. Lin Hao was confident he could make him cut himself, or else let another tribe take power. What did he do? Zheng Xian hadn't seen the scene in the abandoned factory outside San Francisco. This old man was trying to cover up his mistake by going to San Francisco and killing a black man who could transform into a Black Panther. Lin Hao replied. Will Fortson, as the director of the SHIE, Zheng Xian was naturally aware of the recent racial discrimination incidents in America. He looked at Lin Hao questioningly. "What was your plan?" "Yes, a tool," Lin Hao confessed. Zheng Xian didn't ask any further questions. "Director, if I truly awaken the Black Panther god, you must bring the Holy Spear to back me up," Lin Hao said with a cheeky smile. Zheng Xian glanced at him, as if seeing through his thoughts, and finally nodded. Vibranium has many benefits and uses, and is extremely valuable. Every year, the 5 major gangs fight tooth and nail over the tiny amounts leaked from Wakanda. Intelligence agencies around the world try their best to spy on Wakanda, but their conclusions align with Wakanda's external narrative. Now that Wakanda has finally been revealed to be concealing something, and SHIE has found a weak spot, how can they remain indifferent? Zheng Xian quickly reported to his immediate superiors and obtained permission for the operation. Through this test, Lin Hao finally confirmed that the Spear of Imhotep sent by Zhang Heng had indeed been kept by SHIE. With this holy spear as a backup, Lin Hao would have greater confidence to pursue his future adventures. The Ring Fortress then flew southwest, crossing the Pacific Ocean to the Indian Ocean, heading straight for East Africa. Zheng Xian returned to the director's office and announced to all agents within the fortress, Level 9 Agent Big Devil will now assume command of the fortress. All departments must cooperate fully. It was impossible for all 500,000 SHIE agents to remain within the Ring Fortress. This time, Zheng Xian brought only a handful of highly reliable personnel to ensure there were no moles planted by other factions. Hearing the return of the Big Devil, the fortress erupted in murmurs. "Is the Big Devil out on another mission? Who's the unlucky one this time? Poor kid, why would he offend our Big Devil? Don't you know how petty the Big Devil is?" Lin Hao, donning a metal mask, modulated his voice and issued orders to the fortress through holographic projection. "Maximize engine and shield power. Everyone prepare for impact." With that, the massive ring fortress plummeted downward, unleashing an earth drop attack, slamming down on the energy shield of Wakanda's capital. The two transparent shields collided with a resounding roar, louder than a thunderbolt from the blue. The ring-shaped fortress's energy shield flickered constantly. Wakanda's shield was no better. The scene disguised as a desolate grassland trembled, occasionally revealing the tall buildings within. Alarms blared in the Wakanda capital, encircled by the energy shield. Citizens looked up, beholding a massive fortress looming in the sky. King T'Chaka and Princess Shuri were absent. Queen Ramonda and Prince T'Challa stared in disbelief. This fortress seemed familiar to Ramonda, but she couldn't place it. She seemed to have seen it on her husband's desk before. Wakanda possessed the most advanced technology currently available on Earth. Surveillance satellites enabled it to gather intelligence from around the world. Princess Shuri, a brilliant scientist, exploited the unique properties of vibranium to develop a uniquely Wakanda-like technology, significantly advancing Wakanda's technological capabilities. Mother, the radar had no advance warning. The enemy's camouflage was exceptionally sophisticated. Although T'Challa had secretly consumed a heart-shaped herb with his father's tacit approval, he was unfamiliar with technology and unable to manipulate the central control system designed by his sister. He could only let the system follow its pre-programmed defenses and counterattacks. "Father and Shuri are away. We must defend the capital," Ramonda decisively ordered. "Send a message to the 5 major tribes, and have them mobilize their forces." However, before they could prepare their defenses, a massive laser beam descended from the sky, slamming into Wakanda's shield. After a tense second, it finally blasted a hole. "This tortoise shell is damn hard. No wonder Director Mie had to resort to cannon fodder," Lin Hao muttered to himself. Once the hole was opened, a series of 7-meter-tall pacifists leaped from the fortress's open hatch. Director Lin arrived at the African lighthouse. The pacifists would bring true peace to Wakanda. Chapter 19, Capturing the Wakanda Palace. The pacifist is a powerful robot created by Vegapunk based on Bartholomew Kuma. Its power was so immense that even the Straw Hat Pirates, before the Battle of Marineford, had to muster their entire crew for a long, hard battle to defeat it. In the pirate world, this robot costs as much as a major naval warship. However, this is due to the low productivity of the pirate world's basic industrial base, requiring all parts and alloys to be custom-made. The Celestial Dragon-ruled world government cannot afford to improve its basic industrial base, as this would strengthen the military power of various nations and threaten its own rule. They are always financially secure thanks to the plundering of celestial gold. The Marvel Universe's basic industrial base is centuries more advanced than that of the pirate world, naturally significantly reducing the cost of manufacturing parts. After joining the SHIELD, Lin Hao utilized various cutting-edge technologies to generate vast sums of money for the SHIELD, and now, like SHIELD, they have no shortage of funds. Consequently, Lin Hao rushed to deploy hundreds of pacifists at once. The towering robots stormed the Wakanda capital, firing lasers from their hands and mouths. The lighthouse of Africa erupted in flames, leaving the area devastated. Everywhere were cries of pain. Assholes! On the terrace in front of the Wakanda Palace, the tallest building in the distance, Prince T'Challa's face twisted in fury. He turned and rushed to his sister's laboratory, intending to don his vibranium armor and transform into Black Panther. "Stop," Queen Ramonda called out to him. "Without His Majesty, are you going to let everyone know you stole the heart-shaped grass?" But T'Challa looked up at the devastation of the capital, with countless civilians dead in the flames. "Even if you donned armor, you can't defeat so many robots, Ramonda, no ordinary woman," observed with a cold eye. She observed for a moment and realized that the robots' defenses were formidable. The arriving royal guards could only barely penetrate their defenses with their vibranium spears, but could not penetrate them. The robots' offensive power was even greater. Not to mention their casual laser fire, their sheer physical strength was enough to split rocks and shatter stone. A single slap from a royal guard member would effectively render them incapable of movement. In Wakanda, only the Black Panthers are authorized to consume the heart-shaped herb. The royal guards are, frankly, just a group of well-trained soldiers, relying on their vibranium spears to bully conventional armies. The royal guards lack full-body vibranium armor, and their defense is inferior to that of previous Black Panthers. This is understandable. If every member of the royal guards were equipped with a set of vibranium armor and weapons, how could the king of Wakanda sleep soundly? Even until Thanos' arrival, the royal guards fought the aliens with only a single spear, despite even the rhinos being clad in vibranium armor. "Go, as a prince, organize the people to retreat to the bomb shelter," Ramonda instructed her son. "That's what you should do, rather than recklessly charging into battle. Organizing a retreat in times of crisis can win widespread public support and lay a solid foundation for future succession to the throne." The main reason was that they couldn't defeat the enemy. If they could, charging forward and repelling them with a few punches and kicks would not only win the hearts of the people but also consolidate their prestige. He ordered the royal guards to take T'Challa away, while Queen Ramonda remained on the terrace in front of the palace. The enemy's sudden attack on Wakanda was most likely targeting vibranium, and she needed to hold the enemy steady while her husband was away until he returned. As long as the enemy had something to ask for, there was still room for negotiation. Besides, Wakanda wasn't completely defenseless. As the attack began, energy cannons scattered across the capital began to automatically counterattack, firing energy shells that struck the pacifists, effectively collapsing the metal skeleton that supported them. Fortunately, the robots were pain insensitive and extremely durable, allowing them to continue their attacks even when injured, even with limbs missing. Ordinary alloys are still a little lacking, Lin Hao observed from the Ring Fortress's command room, his desire for vibranium growing stronger. Vibranium falling into the hands of those idiots in Wakanda is a sheer waste. If Marvel hadn't officially appointed a Princess Zuri, they'd only be using it to craft armor and spears, continuing this tradition for thousands of years. These selfish, ignorant bastards control Earth's greatest wealth, yet have done nothing to advance human civilization. If Wakanda had more advanced weaponry when Thanos struck, or if they donated their vibranium to each of their core players to create a suit of armor, Thanos might not have even had a chance to snap his fingers. Is it because they don't have enough vibranium? They even slapped vibranium armor on the rhinos. These bastards are terrified of outsiders discovering Wakanda's vast vibranium reserves. So, at this critical juncture for humanity's survival, they refuse to disclose it, allowing billions of Earthlings to perish. Lin Hao feels no compunction about attacking such a rubbish nation. Since ancient times, artifacts have belonged to the virtuous. Since the Wakandans refuse to use their vibranium to contribute to human civilization, Lin Hao will seize it. Main guns fully charged. Upon hearing this, Lin Hao decisively ordered, "Continue the bombardment, let the fortress break through." As the order was passed down, yellow lasers emanated from the edges of the ring fortress, converging like a trickle onto the floating main gun platform in the center. Then the main guns fired. The yellow lasers of varying sizes formed a golden umbrella-like rib in the air. The golden umbrella's handle slammed heavily into Wakanda's protective shield, widening the wounds that had been healing, leaving gaps like ugly white spots on a face. After the laser barrage, the ring fortress charged again. This time, the tattered shield collapsed, allowing the ring fortress to successfully penetrate and dominate the skies above Wakanda. The energy cannons on the ground naturally turned their muzzles, unleashing a barrage of energy shells at the ring fortress. The fighter jets in the Wakanda hangar, controlled by the central control system, automatically took to the air and swarmed towards the ring fortress. Main guns shut down, secondary guns fire freely, and shoot down their planes and energy cannons. Lin Hao delivered his cold command. The main battery, floating in the center of the ring fortress, flew back to its emplacement inside, while the numerous secondary batteries at the periphery began to operate freely. Lasers fired at different locations in the Wakanda capital. Lasers, thicker than those of the pacifists, blasted the ground-based energy cannons, quickly demolishing each emplacement. Both sides employed energy weapons, their guidance systems equally matched, ensuring accurate targeting. The ring fortress remained protected by its shield, but Wakanda's ground-based batteries could not withstand the saturation attack. While the ground batteries had their own shields, they were too thin and easily breached. Queen, the enemy is strong. You should retreat to a safe location and wait for reinforcements from the other tribes to arrive before retaking the capital. While Wakanda only features one capital in the film, each of the 5 tribes maintains its own territory. With the capital attacked, the royal family still has room for strategic retreat, though a defeat would inevitably lead to criticism from the other tribes. But if they can't even save their lives, what future can they have? The ring fortress had descended to within 100 meters of the Wakanda palace, allowing Lin Hao's observation haki to easily lock onto Queen Ramonda below. Want to escape? Without a word, Lin Hao rushed to the nearest hatch and leaped in. His haki swept through, and those within the palace below frothed at the mouth and collapsed. Seeing the commander leap down, the other agents quickly descended from the fortress on a suspended platform and caught up with Lin Hao, who was traversing the air with his moonstep. Opening a small opening in the protective shield, Lin Hao and his agents charged into the Wakanda palace, easily capturing Queen Ramonda. Now, with the exception of T'Challa, the entire royal family was present. Chapter 20, Vibranium mines have belonged to the Shema Bureau since ancient times. When T'Chaka woke up, he was completely dazed. Hadn't he just cleared out the infidels and boarded his own plane, heading home? He looked around and saw that it was indeed his own palace. Oh, I'm back. His eyes narrowed in confusion, and he finally remembered what had happened the moment he jumped onto the plane. No, someone knocked me out. He then realized he was bound by chains, his unconscious daughter on his left, his wife, who had just fallen asleep, on his right. Are you awake? A cold voice called out. You're the most docile of this group. Looking in the direction of the voice, T'Chaka saw a black metal mask with 3 white crescents, 2 small and 1 large, emblazoned with an exaggerated smile. He couldn't see the man's eyes or mouth, but he could hear his voice clearly. It wasn't thick or thin, but it carried a lingering coldness. Who are you? T'Chaka found himself in the main hall of Wakanda's palace, surrounded by a group of men in red uniforms standing guard. The formation was strict, and they looked like elite soldiers. Don't worry, I don't want to repeat myself. Let's wait until your son and the leaders of the 5 tribes arrive before introducing myself. Lin Hao turned and began to survey the hall's interior. After capturing Queen Ramonda, Lin Hao immediately rushed to Shuri's laboratory. He spent some time breaking into Wakanda's central control system and taking control of the entire capital's defenses. The protective shield recharged, returning to its primitive, underdeveloped grassland camouflage. He then remotely controlled Wakanda's satellites in low Earth orbit to transmit a jamming signal, temporarily disabling any foreign satellites orbiting over Wakanda during that period. This ensured that even if a foreign satellite happened to capture footage of the battle, it would be unable to transmit. The universe is filled with radiation, and interference and even damage to satellites is normal. Furthermore, SHIELD's Black Egg was likely already in Los Angeles, investigating the attack on the Los Angeles branch and temporarily preoccupied with other matters. Lin Hao took advantage of this opportunity to quietly capture Wakanda. Wakanda's population is small, and its military is even smaller. Aside from the previous Black Panthers, who are metahumans ingesting the heart-shaped herb, only M'Baku, the leader of the Jabari tribe, possesses gorilla powers bestowed by a white ape. The rest are ordinary individuals, relying solely on their vibranium weapons for their own violence. SWORD officially boasts 150,000 agents. The 10,000 brought out by Zheng Xian are elite, all trained in the fundamental internal martial arts techniques derived by Lin Hao. Those who have practiced for more than 5 years possess speed and strength comparable to Black Panther without his vibranium armor. 5,000 men were dispatched to the 5 major tribes to capture their leaders, 3,000 to suppress the Wakanda capital, and the remaining 2,000 remained on guard at the Ring Fortress. After leaving the palace, T'Challa was taken by the accompanying royal guards to the river tribe on the banks of the Amis River. This tribe is the most loyal to the Wakanda royal family, and its leader's daughter, Nakia, is T'Challa's girlfriend. Unfortunately, the SWORD agents, arriving later in hovercrafts, arrived first. A level 7 SHIE agent pointed at T'Challa and the royal guards galloping on horseback on the grasslands below and said, "Old Lee, I'll take 10 of you down there to capture T'Challa. You continue on to the river tribe, 10 men enough," his colleague laughed. "Be careful you get knocked down and have to wait for me to come back and save you, are you kidding? Do you think my internal energy training was in vain?" With that, he and his 10 subordinates mounted their speeder bikes and charged down. The battle was a foregone conclusion. T'Challa was running fast, without his vibranium armor, and his physical prowess alone was no match for the 11 SHIE agents, who had cultivated their internal energy. After capturing T'Challa and the royal guards, they waited for a while and soon saw their colleagues returning with the leader of the river tribe. The 5 armies reported success after success. Aside from the Jabari tribe in the Snowy Mountains and the Border tribe, which oversaw border defenses and inflicted some losses on SHIE, the other 3 tribes were nearly easily captured. After capturing the leaders of the 5 tribes, Lin Hao's 5 divisions quickly returned to Wakanda's capital without engaging in a fight. This prompted the 5 tribes, upon seeing their leaders captured, to spontaneously pursue them, sending plumes of dust billowing across the grasslands. Seeing their leaders being taken to the capital, the leaders paused for a moment before the city's protective shield, their thoughts racing. Some believed their nation was under attack, while others believed the royal family intended to wipe out the 5 tribes and consolidate power. But with their leaders abducted, they couldn't remain indifferent, lest their morale fall apart and their forces become difficult to lead. "I'll take half of the men in, and you retreat first. If we're not back by nightfall, return to your tribes immediately." The 5 tribes responded with nearly identical actions, even the river tribe, the most loyal to the royal family. Wakanda's tribes had fought against each other for thousands of years in ancient times, until the arrival of the first Black Panther, who forcibly united them and formed the nation of Wakanda. Unfortunately, this country has never been truly unified. Power is divided among the tribes, with the main military authority held by the border tribes. The crucial vibranium mines are mined by the mining tribes, yet the wealthiest tribes, those who control the national treasury, are the merchant tribes. Then there's the ape tribe, which disregards orders and whose leader is second only to the Black Panther. Honestly, this is precisely why the descendants of Europe, who haven't seen a unified nation since the Roman Empire, would embrace such a shabby organizational model. In the meat grinder of East Asia, if such a country existed, they would have been beaten to pulp and annihilated by the enemy, and how could they expect to continue peacefully for thousands of years? After half of the 5 major tribes entered the capital, Lin Hao completely deactivated the protective shield. The long-awaited SHIE agents joined the pacifists and forcibly disarmed the troops. Inside the palace hall, the 5 leaders felt a sudden sense of peace upon seeing the neatly arranged royal family. "Good, I'm not the only one suffering. Everyone's here. I'm here to announce this to you." Lin Hao's indifferent voice reached every high-ranking official in Wakanda. "We, SHIE, are reclaiming the vibranium mines that have belonged to us since ancient times." Ridiculous, laughable, the vibranium mines are clearly Wakanda's. When did they become yours? What the heck is SHIE? I've never heard of them. The leaders of the mining and merchant tribes were the first to speak out. Their wealth depended entirely on the vibranium mines. Judging by the situation, it looked like their entire country had been wiped out. They must have discovered the true reserves of vibranium. To deny it would be humiliating. T'Chaka remained silent with a stern face. He knew what SHIE was. From the world history recorded in Wakanda, he knew it was an organization with a long history. Prince T'Challa, however, was still reeling from the easy defeat by SHIE agents. He couldn't understand why he, having tasted the heart-shaped grass, was so easily defeated. Wasn't the heart-shaped grass a sacred gift bestowed by the Black Panther god? Isn't it a sacred object that only noble Wakanda possesses? I can't defeat them without eating it, and I still can't defeat them after eating it. Did I eat this heart-shaped grass in vain? T'Challa, who was only in his teens at this time, was still a teenager and attached great importance to success and failure. The leader of the Jabari tribe, M'Baku, was also silent. He was also very young and was also easily defeated by the enemy just now. The leader of the river tribe hugged his daughter Nakia and observed the situation carefully. From time to time, he glanced at T'Challa, and then looked at Lin Hao wearing a metal mask, thinking about who to give his daughter to in order to protect the interests of the river tribe in the future. Let me tell you a story. About 4,000 years ago, in 2620 BC, the world's first empire appeared in your north. Please collect, please vote for the monthly ticket, please recommend, please read, please everything. Chapter 21. This is since ancient times. In 2620 BC, an alien creature called the Brood invaded Earth. It was the home of the Zerg. Lin Hao began to tell the story in the palace of Wakanda. I've seen this legend in the historical records of our ancestors. The weak Princess Zuri finally woke up and took over Lin Hao's words. But they were destroyed, and the battle took place in Egypt. What does that have to do with us in Wakanda? Don't worry. Seeing someone come forward to corroborate the story, Lin Hao's mood brightened and his attitude became much more amiable. T'Chaka turned around and glared at his daughter. Poor child, has she become stupid from studying? As Princess Shuri said, the alien invasion was defeated by humans. Imhotep, the architect of the pyramids, led an army to annihilate the Brood and founded a far-reaching organization, the Brotherhood of the Holy Shield. After defeating the Brood, Imhotep was revered as a god and worshipped. The spear and round shield he used to defeat the Brood became known as the Holy Spear and Holy Shield, respectively. The Holy Shield remained with the Brotherhood of the Holy Shield and became its totem. The Holy Spear then traveled east and was inherited by Zhang Heng, the founder of our Holy Spear Bureau. From then on, the Sang Spear in the east, shield in the west became common. The young girl, Shuri, was fascinated by the story and subconsciously asked, what does this have to do with Wakanda? Though a genius at 11 or 12, she was still a child. The rest is about to begin. The previous part of the story had some basis for conclusion, and then Lin Hao launched into a serious, nonsensical rant. Through the historical events just now, it should be clear to everyone that humans are not alone in the universe. Aliens have been visiting Earth for thousands of years. About 5,000 years ago, a number of natural gods were born on Earth, such as Shiva and Vishnu in India, Amun-Ra and Horus in Egypt, Izanagi in Japan, the Jade Emperor and the Nanji Xian Wing in China, and, of course, your Black Panther goddess. Lin Hao finally mentioned Wakanda. The gazes of all the Wakanda officials converged. Thanks to the recognition of their country's talented princess, Suli, they somewhat believed Lin Hao was right and naturally became curious about these ancient secrets. To distribute the power of faith, quell conflicts among believers, and defend against alien threats, these native gods joined forces with Odin, king of Asgard, and Zeus, king of Olympus, to establish the Council of the Gods. It was agreed that gods of all races could participate in the council and consult and decide major issues on Earth. After explaining the background information, Lin Hao revealed his true intentions. The Chinese divine organization, Heavenly Court, sent the Nanji Immortal to the Council of the Gods. Once, your Black Panther goddess approached the Nanji Immortal, stating that Wakanda's smelting technology was poor at the time, and proposed that both sides jointly develop vibranium mines. All the Wakanda executives looked at Lin Hao as if he were idiots. Haha, how dare you say such a lie to children? Are you treating us like idiots? Even the child, Zuri, didn't believe him. What evidence do you have? Yes, Lin Hao beckoned to his subordinates, who brought in a sophisticated safe. He continued as he opened it. The two sides worked together intermittently for over 1,000 years, until the Council of the Gods decreed that all gods ceased interfering in human life. The Black Panther goddess and all the gods of heaven disappeared. Later, a celestial maiden descended upon Luoyang, the capital of the Eastern Han Dynasty. She informed Zhang Heng, the president of the Royal Academy of Sciences, that heaven had previously made such an agreement with the gods of Wakanda, a perfect solution for Zhang Heng's material problem for building a seismometer. As he spoke, Lin Hao unexpectedly displayed an ancient scroll depicting Zhang Heng standing in a loft meeting the celestial maiden. He then produced another depicting a Han Dynasty fleet setting sail. Upon hearing the Celestial Maiden's message, Zheng Xian was overjoyed and immediately dispatched a fleet across the ocean to the Persian Gulf. I imagine there's a record of this in Wakanda's history. It only records your arrival in the Persian Gulf. There's no mention of the vibranium mines. The honest child, Zuri, spoke impatiently. T'Chaka rolled his eyes, wishing he could sew his daughter's mouth shut, but he was bound with alloy chains. The other Wakanda officials had previously shown little interest in this ancient history. Although they all had access to the royal library, who, aside from the studious young prodigy, would have the time to rummage through such archives? During the Eastern Han Dynasty, Wakanda was surrounded by tribes, and only they had developed the concept of a nation. Naturally, such a significant event as the visit of a great Eastern power was recorded by the Wakanda royal family. The Book of the Later Han records of the Western region's records that in 97 AD, Banjao dispatched Gan Ying as an envoy to Deccan. He looked toward the Western Sea, gazing at Deccan, the Western Sea being the Persian Gulf. From this point on, Chinese people reached the African continent, and the maritime Silk Road soon began to touch the coasts of the Persian Gulf. Building on this success, Zheng He, on his final voyage, circumnavigated the Horn of Africa, crossed the Mozambique Channel, and reached Madagascar. However, fate proved unfortunate, and he ultimately failed to cross the Cape of Good Hope and find a sea route to the lands of the West. The evidence is irrefutable. Lin Hao shook the ancient painting in his hand and declared righteously, "This is since ancient times, the lies were a mixture of truth and falsehood, 9 truths and 1 lie, 9 shallow and 1 deep." Even the Wakanda brass were puzzled. Did the Black Panther goddess truly have a pact with the Eastern gods? I knew you wouldn't believe it. Lin Hao waved his hand, ordering his subordinates to carry away the precious historical document. Actually, there's a simpler way. Lin Hao turned and smiled at T'Chaka. Just wake up the Black Panther goddess and ask her. No, T'Chaka's voice almost cracked, like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. The leaders of the 5 tribes cast inquiring glances. T'Challa, knowing what his father had done yesterday, lowered his head, afraid to meet their gazes. Princess Zuri also looked away, guiltily. Your Majesty, do you think what I said is true? Lin Hao said, his voice firm. You don't want the Black Panther goddess to find out you killed Black Panther, do you? The Black Panther goddess might not care about an African American who can transform into a Black Panther, but she certainly cares about whether she's being deceived by a believer. Especially one chosen by him to be walking on earth. It's like the Pope deceiving God. While popes in the ordinary world often do this, it's because they know full well that God doesn't exist. But gods do exist in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and even the Council of Gods was revealed in Thor 4. The Black Panther goddess truly exists in Wakanda. Otherwise, why would T'Chaka deliberately paint his vibranium armor like a tiger and even create a tiger head helmet? Wasn't it just to deceive himself, to provide some psychological comfort? Now that he heard Lin Hao was about to wake the Black Panther goddess, how could T'Chaka not be anxious? He remembered that she had knocked him unconscious the moment he jumped into the plane, clearly knowing what had happened in San Francisco. T'Chaka, like swallowing a mouthful of feces, gritted his teeth for a long moment before he said, "All right, then, let's develop it together, and we'll split the vibranium production equally. No matter how valuable vibranium is, it's not as valuable as royal power." If the Black Panther goddess truly awakens, the worst fate for T'Chaka and his family will be expulsion, likely slain by the enraged citizens and their successor. The enemy might be expelled by the Black Panther goddess, but the family would lose everything. As long as they retain the throne, their losses are practically non-existent. Because Wakanda sells so little vibranium each year, by controlling sales, they've driven the price of vibranium to a staggering $10,000 per gram. Even if they were to give away half of the vibranium mine in the future, it wouldn't make a difference to Wakanda's top brass. SWORD wouldn't be foolish enough to dump their own vibranium on the market and drive up prices. Furthermore, vibranium's stable molecular structure makes it as volatile as gold. The vibranium they've mined over thousands of years has experienced virtually no loss, completely eliminating any potential for recycling. So, for the entire Wakanda leadership, whether they receive 10 or 5 kilograms of vibranium annually from now on makes no difference. If the vibranium isn't traded, it doesn't matter whether they keep more or less, because they only produce it, not consume it. Wakanda isn't planning to build the entire country into a capital, so they simply can't use up all the vibranium. They also don't aspire to dominate the world, They simply want to live their lives in this place where they've lived for generations. Seeing the king nod, the other tribal leaders remained silent. Only M'Baku, the tough guy, jumped out and yelled at T'Chaka, "Coward, you don't deserve to inherit the name Black Panther." "Oh," Lin Hao's voice turned cold again. "It seems this leader is expecting a war." M'Baku was speechless. He was no fool. As the strongest of the Jabari tribe, he was easily defeated by a handful of enemy soldiers. With the Jabari tribe's strength, they were undoubtedly no match for the enemy. "I can publicize your invasion of Wakanda." M'Baku had an idea. "Our warriors are still out there." "Really?" Lin Hao approached him, sneering. "If you want to make it public, we'll at least take a small share, but your existence in Wakanda will be obsolete." The Wakanda brass then realized that one of the 5 great gangs was behind SHIEE. Even if the news went public, the gang would still get at least 20% of the profits based on their status. But Wakanda would undoubtedly be wiped out by the 5 great gangs. "I know you have some advanced technology, but how many people do you have? How many arsenals do you have? How many food reserves do you have? Do you have the war potential to match that of the 5 great gangs, not only in material terms, but also in moral terms?" Lin Hao coldly shattered their fantasies of mutual destruction. "Have you experienced a real war in thousands of years? Do your people have the endurance to endure the brutality of war that we have endured? Do you think a world war is just a game played by 5 tribes?" I said. "We agreed to joint development." T'Chaka refused to let Lin Hao continue his venomous attack. "Equal distribution won't do. I want at least one." Lin Hao turned around, only to be greeted by a mysterious pressure from within the palace. A slender Black Panther descended upon the palace gates, slowly and gracefully approaching Lin Hao, his voice hollow and lazy. "Kid, why don't I remember any agreement with the Southern Pole Immortal? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels." Chapter 22 The Spear is Coming. "Kid, why don't I remember any agreement with the Antarctic Immortal?" a vague voice echoed, as if from the depths of his soul. Without a word, Lin Hao looked up at the sky and shouted, "Spear!" The floating ring fortress instantly opened a hatch, and a golden spear descended from the sky. It pierced the Wakanda palace's dome like a knife through tofu, piercing the floor in front of Lin Hao. Lin Hao rushed forward at top speed, unsheathed the golden spear, and sent a shower of golden light towards the Black Panther goddess's phantom. The Black Panther figure at the palace entrance paused, staring blankly at the spear in Lin Hao's hand. The spear's tip was shaped like an eagle's wing, and its body was crafted from an unknown alloy. In Lin Hao's hand, it shone with a faint golden light. The golden light shone with a powerful aura. The Black Panther goddess sensed a strong sense of threat from the spear. This was a divine weapon capable of destroying both the Zerg Hive and the Celestials. "You are the Black Panther goddess, right?" Lin Hao, spear in hand, remained calm as he asked with a smile. "I didn't hear what you said just now. Could you please repeat it?" The Black Panther goddess was silent for a moment, then spoke calmly. "I did have an agreement with the Immortal Elder that the vibranium mines would be jointly developed by both parties." A dead silence fell over the Wakanda brass. It turned out that even the great Black Panther goddess would admit defeat. "See, I told you the vibranium mines have belonged to our SHIELD since ancient times." Lin Hao glanced around, leaving the Wakanda brass speechless. "How could I lie in front of Her Majesty the Goddess?" Lin Hao, clutching the holy spear, occasionally gleaming with a golden light, spoke to himself. "I just thought, an equal division isn't fair. You've been mining for 2,000 years without even contacting us. What a loss, but we're a nation of propriety. Let bygones be bygones. For the next 100 years, however, we'll have full mining rights over the vibranium mines. After that, we'll collaborate on mining. 100 years for 2,000 years is a bit of a loss, but we accept it." Lin Hao's tone was filled with gritted teeth and generosity, as if cutting flesh. Then, he flashed another gunshot, glaring at everyone around him. "I finished speaking. Who's in favor? Who's against?" The Black Panther goddess didn't bother to respond, instead issuing an order to the Wakanda leadership. "From this day forward, T'Chaka's title of Black Panther will be stripped from him, and his son, T'Challa, will inherit it." Originally, the Black Panther goddess had intended to replace the royal family, but the other 5 tribes proved incompetent. M'Baku, leader of the Jabari tribe, is quite alright, but this guy actually worshipped the white ape and even gained its power. Clearly, he's planning to create a new Wakanda. No one would choose him. With that, the Black Panther's shadow vanished. Neither his strength nor his longevity comes from alien substances like vibranium. As long as his followers are safe, vibranium is no different from stone. Yes, sir, all the high-ranking officials in Wakanda, including T'Chaka, knelt respectfully in the direction the Black Panther goddess had departed. As soon as the Black Panther goddess left, a prearranged SWA agent rushed over to report, "Sir, radar detected a spaceship approaching at high speed. It's the director's vehicle." "Oh no. It was spotted so quickly," Lin Hao exclaimed exaggeratedly. "What should we do?" The subordinate's expression became even more exaggerated, no trace of anxiety visible. "The director won't punish us, will he?" "Don't worry, I'll handle anything," Lin Hao patted his chest and declared. The four young men, Shuri, T'Challa, M'Baku, and Nakia, all showed expectant expressions, hoping that the leader of the great devil in front of them would come to punish them and give justice to Wakanda. The rest of the old foxes were all rolling their eyes. How could a subordinate use a war machine like the Ring Fortress without the consent of his superiors? How could a sacred artifact that had been preserved for 2,000 years be taken out without the permission of the leader? Such a childish performance, fooling the devil. Soon, Zheng Xian arrived at the palace hall, and as soon as he entered the door, he scolded Lin Hao, "You are lawless, unorganized and undisciplined. Are you going to rebel? Come here, take him to the confinement room and reflect on himself." Lin Hao cooperated honestly, and followed a team of agents away with his head hung. After his scolding, Zheng Xian quickly walked over to T'Chaka and personally untied his chains. With a gentle voice, he said, "Your Majesty, I failed to discipline you properly and caused you to suffer. I'm sorry, but I'm no longer the king of Wakanda." T'Chaka pushed his son, T'Challa, forward. "Her Majesty has just decreed that my son will succeed her as king. You will discuss the rest with him." "Father, T'Challa's face was filled with anxiety. He was still a child, he didn't understand these things. "Don't be afraid. The goddess herself has acknowledged that the vibranium mines can be developed in a cooperative manner. I also think the gentleman's proposal is reasonable." T'Chaka gritted his teeth, but remained calm. "We've been mining alone for 2,000 years, so we do deserve some compensation." "Oh," T'Challa understood. Despite the leader's affable expression, they had no room for negotiation. Zheng Xian smiled, his eyes narrowing. "Then please ask both parties to send representatives to discuss the specific development agreement." While it was just a discussion, the agreement was already in place. Wakanda had only two options, yes or no. The only choice was agreement. They finally experienced what Li Zhongtang had felt back then. Even the Black Panther goddess was caring, so what could they do? Okay, from now on, we will both set aside our differences and jointly develop the area," Zheng Xian beamed, putting away the signed agreement. "No disputes," the new Wakanda king, T'Challa, said in a deep voice. "Then we can coexist peacefully and benefit each other." This small incident didn't faze the diplomatically skilled Zheng Xian. He further requested, "From now on, we can deepen our cooperation in even more areas, develop and progress together, and contribute to the advancement of human civilization." After the agreement was signed, elite agents from the SHIE agency arrived in Wakanda. 2,000 agents with advanced internal energy cultivation, along with 100 pacifists and 3 aerospace battleships that were gradually deployed, encircled the entire vibranium mining area. The peacekeeping detachment will not interfere with the Wakandans' normal lives. They will build a high wall surrounding the mining area, and won't allow Wakandans back in until 100 years have passed. As for how much vibranium will remain after that, it's unclear. Throughout the entire takeover process, the Wakandans remain calm. This is a monarchy ruled by divine right. Even the Black Panther goddess, the supreme goddess, has given her approval. The higher-ups have no objections, and the common people naturally have no objections either. Again, the vibranium they've mined over thousands of years has barely been consumed. The current reserves are more than enough for normal use and annual trade, with no impact on their lives. After taking control of the vibranium mine, Lin Hao returned to the Ring Fortress and inquired about Evan's condition. "Is his injury okay? He's old, and he needs some rest." Zheng Xian was back in his office, fiddling with his beloved orchid, gently wiping it, as if he were treating a lover. With a vibranium mine under his control, Zheng Xian was in high spirits. The power of the SHIEA would be significantly enhanced. Has the internal audit been conducted? Lin Hao asked again. Is he okay? No, Zheng Xian shook his head. How did the bar get exposed? This is a question that Lin Hao still can't figure out. Reading a new book is really important. I beg for a favor, even if it's just a click or a swipe. Woohoo. Chapter 23 His Hero, My Enemy. Lin Hao chose to trust Zheng Xian's judgment. After all, he was a master with years of experience in the intelligence field. If he said it was okay, it probably meant it was. 2 years ago, when Chang Yi first arrived in North America, he scouted the bar. I think that's when he was targeted by the mole. Zheng Xian quickly identified a possibility based on Ivan's account. That means there's definitely a mole within the Americas branch. Lin Hao frowned. And there's a good chance he's still lurking, waiting to surprise me. You'll have to investigate these matters yourself, Zheng Xian said calmly, wiping the orchid leaves. Nick Fury is a formidable enemy. You bombed his Los Angeles branch. He'll surely guess our new leader has arrived in North America. How many people in the entire Americas branch are still alive? Lin Hao's expression grew heavy. Zheng Xian put down the rag and said gravely, there were originally 288 people, but now only 63 remain. Go and write down their information. Okay, I should probably go back to San Francisco. Lin Hao turned and left. While the two members of the SHIE discussed Nick Fury, he had been standing by the pit of the former Los Angeles branch for a long time, observing it. The former base vanished without a trace, leaving only this massive crater. Boss, we've searched the site and found no trace of radiation, Leo Fitz, a physics doctor, reported to Nick Fury, instruments in hand. But many nearby citizens witnessed a mushroom cloud, and distant surveillance cameras captured it. Phil Coulson was deeply frustrated. The director had sent him west to recruit Black Panther and White Dog, but White Dog had vanished without a trace, and Black Panther, despite contacting him, had been killed. It would have been fine if he hadn't found him, but in the blink of an eye, an entire Los Angeles branch had been wiped out. Unfortunate Coulson felt his chances of promotion were slim. That's the weird part. If it was a nuclear bomb, the surveillance equipment around here wouldn't have been intact. Fitz shrugged. If it wasn't a nuclear bomb, what other weapon could have destroyed a base so completely? Coulson couldn't think of. Where are the people? Nick Fury interrupted their argument, demanding, is there not a single survivor from the Los Angeles branch? We got the news last night and arrived in the early morning hours. We searched for 10 hours, not rescued, but haven't found a single colleague. Coulson's expression was solemn, as if a heavy burden weighed heavily on his shoulders. Grant and Melinda went to the airport and the docks, respectively. We've also dispatched personnel to the highway exits, but we've yet to find any signs of any colleagues from the branch leaving Los Angeles. The results are in, Gemma Simmons reported, holding a tablet. We found some DNA in the pit and the surrounding area. After comparison, it's confirmed to be from the Los Angeles branch. How many have been identified? Nick Fury took the tablet. Less than a third. The sample is too small, not even a piece of tissue the size of a fingernail. Simmons spread his hands. We couldn't even find a single intact hair. Does that mean the entire Los Angeles branch was blasted to its molecular state by some mysterious weapon? Leo Fitz's eyes lit up, like a gourmet encountering a delicacy. That's really cool. I really want to know what kind of weapon it is. Judging from the shape of the dirt splashing at the scene, it should be an expansive energy that expands outward, not a contracting energy that collapses inward. Simmons took over the topic. But is it possible for a simple thermal or kinetic impact to decompose buildings and human bodies to this extent? Fitz fell into deep thought. Or there is also radioactive energy similar to radiation, but it cannot be detected by our current equipment. The two technicians were having their daily communication. This kind of communication between the two has continued since the SHIELD Academy. However, others often don't understand. Nick Fury walked away in silence for 2 steps, followed closely by Phil Coulson. Although he didn't understand, as long as he remained calm, outsiders wouldn't be able to tell. The people from SHIELD, Nick Fury suddenly spoke, his tone very sure. Young Hyun has sent a new person to take over the America's intelligence network. Coulson glanced around, stepped forward, and whispered, but the mole hasn't received the call to assemble, and the remaining SHIELD agents are still scattered. Months ago, Nick Fury planned and orchestrated SHIELD's operation against the American branch of SHIELD. with Phil Coulson as the executor and responsible for follow-up operations, naturally had liaison authority with the mole. Coulson holds a position akin to political commissar for the Avengers, worthy of the description of devoting himself to America until his death. However, his hero is our enemy. To the SHIELD agents, Phil Coulson is nothing more than an executioner stained with the blood of his comrades. This is a fundamental question of position. Either this new leader is a superpowered being, or he's assembled a new team in such a short time, otherwise, they couldn't have taken down the entire Los Angeles branch. Nick Fury's expression was serious, a sense of solemnity igniting his inner fighting spirit. At his level, only fighting against masters can bring a sense of accomplishment. Then he'll likely continue his revenge, Coulson felt, feeling immense pressure. However, he didn't regret participating in the operation to eliminate the SHIEA network a few months ago. Clashes, confrontations, and sacrifices occurred almost daily on the intelligence front. It was a battlefield without smoke, a war without end. Coulson never regretted stepping onto this battlefield, because it was to protect the America he loved. Intensify intelligence gathering. If this person continues his operations, we'll catch him sooner or later, Nick Fury said confidently. The American continent is our home turf. Lin Hao was unaware that Black Salted Egg had begun increasing his investment in him. After returning to San Francisco from Wakanda, he happily entered another lottery. Yes, after sparking a brief war in Wakanda, he had harvested a large amount of resentment of living beings, allowing him to start another 100-draw streak. Since arriving in America, one day has been worth more than 10 days, Lin Hao beamed. Life is becoming more and more hopeful. Back home, it used to take 4 to 5 months, or even half a year, to get a single 100-draw streak. Now, he can pull one off in less than a week, a 10 to 20-fold increase in efficiency. Summoning the little devil, Lin Hao lit 3 incense sticks and bowed to the heavens and earth of this dimension, praying for a good omen. Turning, he instructed the little devil, begin. This time, his luck was on fire. He actually delivered on his first try. The little devil's short arms tugged at a pink belly band. Come here, I have to teach you a lesson. Lin Hao's brows furrowed, and he grabbed the little devil's face with both hands, and scolded him righteously. I asked you to bring something different and eye-catching, but you brought me some panties, stockings, leather jackets, and belly bands all day long. These are the only things that can make your eyes shine, right? What do you mean it's not to make your eyes shine, but to make me shine? Director Lin was unhappy, and kept rubbing its chubby face, making all kinds of expressions on the 3 white marks. Speak clearly to me, who is the one who'll be eye-catching? That's right, the beautiful women chasing me can circle the Pacific Ocean. Do I need these things? Lin Hao grabbed the belly band. After receiving the message, his expression was first shocked, then stunned, and then regretful. Why are you? Chapter 24 Sadako's videotape The Sword Manual of Exorcism? Zhao Linger's belly band from Chinese Paladin. This was the message Lin Hao received. Nothing else. The ordinary fabric held no energy, no special structure, it was just an ordinary belly band. That shouldn't be the case. Lin Hao's face was filled with resentment, as if possessed by Xianglin Sao. Why would a fairy wear ordinary clothes? Forget dragon scales and phoenix feathers, at least give me some heavenly silk or Holy Spirit armor. Ordinary fabric held no special energy and was worthless beyond its collectible value. Why not take something else? Lin Hao's heart ached, feeling like he'd missed out on billions. He rubbed the little devil's round face vigorously. If you take her bale or jade pendant, I'll gain spiritual power and become an immortal. Woo 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 hee hee. The little devil waved its short arms, vividly recounting the fascinating scene it had just witnessed. A beautiful girl is bathing, and there's a creepy man peeping beside her. Lin Hao had a pretty good idea of the plot. Doesn't that beautiful girl look a lot like Su Hongdao? Who's Su Hongdao? The one who took someone's stockings last time? The little devil thought for a moment and nodded. Oh, why don't you take her bracelet? Lin Hao, his face filled with regret, silently put the belly band into his collection cabinet, muttering from time to time, it hasn't given birth yet, so there's not even any secretions on the belly band. If it's panties, maybe it can bring back some new blood. Remember, if you run into this beautiful girl again next time, go up and pull a hair from her, Lin Hao warned repeatedly. Up, the little devil nodded blankly. The lottery continued. Perhaps because the first draw ruined their luck, the items had been tattered ever since. Besides letting Lin Hao know which worlds the little devil had visited, they hadn't gotten anything useful. Just as their energy was about to run out, the little devil suddenly returned with an old videotape. Lin Hao took it, stunned at first, then a strange smile appeared on his face. "Stop for a moment and get your parchment." Lin Hao eagerly walked over to TV and inserted a videotape into the VCR. The little devil didn't understand, but he pulled out his parchment anyway. Director Lin's little cutie had two main uses. One was to travel through the heavens, bringing back treasures for him to absorb. The other was a common demonic tactic, contracting souls. The little devil possessed a scroll of parchment, a demon's contract, which allowed him to sign a pact with a living being. Lin Hao could then manipulate, control, and erase that being's soul, and naturally, read and tamper with their memories. As everyone knows, signing a pact with the devil has dire consequences. While it may seem like there's some gain, the soul is locked in a lifeless state, effectively selling it to the devil. The little devil's contract was similar. Once a living being placed their fingerprint on it, their soul was bound by the contract. Of course, this presupposed a voluntary commitment and the use of blood as a medium. After all, the formal spirit of the contract had to be adhered to. However, voluntary could be active or passive. Could a contract that couldn't be exploited be called a demon's contract? Back home, Lin Hao had never contracted a soul, just as he had never revealed his android and cloning technologies to Zheng Xian. These methods were too intimidating, especially to those in power. Now that he was in America, he naturally had no taboos. "Put parchment in front of the TV and throw your fork on it," Lin Hao instructed the little devil, then stepped back with a remote. The little devil did as he was told, a look of bewilderment on his face. Lin Hao turned on the TV. First, a snowflake flickered, then the screen showed a gloomy forest with an ancient well within. The dark scene and eerie music made the little devil's eyes light up. This atmosphere was indeed more exciting than his "He" opening line. So the little devil immediately brought over the radio Lin Hao had prepared for him and recorded a new opening line. "When three people walk together, there must be one who can teach me. A saint is not one who deceives me." After the strange opening lasted a moment, a disheveled head suddenly rose from the well. First the head, then the sharp, slender nails. Thin hands, covered by a thin white garment, supported themselves on the ground, step by step, as they climbed out of the well. The little devil trembled at the sight, shrinking back behind Lin Hao in fear. But curiosity seized him, and he peeked out halfway before retreating again. Lin Hao waited, his smile straining. A woman in white, with disheveled hair, emerged from the well and stood at the center of the screen. The next second, the camera zoomed in, her entire head seemingly framed by the screen. A second later, a horrifying scene unfolded. The woman, clearly inside the television, pierced the screen with her hands, ripping it apart and squeezing her head out. It was the same scene as before, first with her hands supporting herself on the ground, then slowly squeezing herself out. Unfortunately, a withered parchment, with a black fork pressed against it, lay in front of the TV. The woman in white slammed her hand onto the fork, and the little devil's fork inflicted a wound on her spirit. Fresh, real blood flowed out, leaving a fragmented bloody handprint on the parchment. Regardless of its fragmented nature, the blood had been absorbed by the parchment. The woman in white shuddered, bolting upright as if struck by an electric shock. Her eyes, drenched in confusion, were filled with confusion behind her disheveled hair. Who am I? Where am I? What have I done? How could such a person exist in this world? I'd set her up, and it worked. Hey, if you're brave enough, Sadako will be on maternity leave, Lin Hao laughed. Through the demon contract, he could sense Sadako's soul and successfully control it. Indeed, the videotape the little devil had brought back was the infamous Sadako videotape. Congratulations, you're the first living being brought back by the little devil. Lin Hao stepped forward, ignoring Sadako's danger. Confused, Sadako desperately wanted to unleash her supernatural powers on this fearless man, but she found herself unable to even think of such a thought. This man was like a deity, untouchable by her. Sadako raised her head, her eyes fixed on Lin Hao from behind her hair. Lin Hao reached out and parted her hair, revealing a pale yet delicate face. Isn't she quite pretty? Lin Hao reached out and touched Sadako's face, feeling it cool. Although a spirit, the touch was real. When Lin Hao touched the videotape, he had replicated its inherent curse, which could cause a person to die within 7 days. Unfortunately, any curse is a form of energy. In Sadako's world, this attack was unstoppable. But in the Marvel world, there were many who could withstand the impact of this energy. It couldn't be said that Sadako's curse could kill even a Dalojinxin or a creator god, could it? In other words, this ability, applied to Lin Hao, could only kill those weaker than him, and they would have to wait 7 days. Lin Hao originally thought he could replicate Sadako's abilities by touching her. He most desired Sadako's healing, ethereal transformation, and spatial travel abilities. However, he discovered that he couldn't exploit the bug. After all, the videotape was what the little devil had brought back. Sadako was merely the spirit residing within it. From now on, you'll follow me and continue with your previous job. Director Lin began assigning tasks. When you encounter women, use your old tactics. When you encounter men, switch roles. He then turned on his computer and showed Sadako a CG animated film Lin Hao had created, featuring a strikingly elegant woman in red. He then retrieved the Bixie sword manual, which the little devil had previously snatched from sect leader Yu, and explained his new approach. I'll leave some seeds of inner strength in you and teach you how to practice this sword technique. Later, when you encounter a man, you can use your superpowers to pass it on to him. It's time for American men to possess their own superpowers. Chapter 25 Master, I have a friend named Tony. Hi, my friend, it's great to see you again. Tony Stark welcomed Lin Hao, who had arrived from San Francisco, at his villa. Me too. I've been looking forward to Mr. Stark's party all week, Lin Hao complimented with a smile. I won't disappoint you, Tony said proudly. If his talent in mechanical engineering was Tony's greatest pride, then his taste in women was surely another. Years of wandering around had honed Tony Stark's discerning eye, and the women he admired were not only beautiful but also uniquely individual. This villa, located on Long Island, New York, wasn't the white mansion perched on the cliffs of Malibu, but it was much older and much larger. Not far from Stark Tower, it was one of the Stark family's ancestral properties. Entering the villa, Lin Hao noticed that the guests were few, but all of them were men. The waitstaff and performers were all women, each of them of exceptional caliber. This party seemed to have no other purpose. It was simply Tony inviting a few like-minded people to enjoy the flowers and play in the water. They had all heard Tony talk about Lin Hao's research in life sciences, and naturally were curious about the masterful techniques used by Master Lin to captivate even the most experienced actress. The woman singing on stage was a rising star on Broadway, her voice melodious and captivating. Her dress, sheer yet revealing, created a hazy, graceful, and captivating image. Since the early 19th century, Broadway has been the center of American entertainment. By the end of the century, its entertainment output had reached $6 billion, maintaining its position as the industry's leading power. It wasn't until the advent of film that Hollywood propelled it to prominence. However, in its early days, Hollywood was largely a minor player, unable to attract famous actors and often facing pressure from traditional theater, a necessary process for every new phenomenon. With the advent of sound films, the viewing experience improved, the content expressed in films expanded, and audiences became more receptive to film. Only then did Hollywood rise to prominence, becoming a hub for the export of American culture. However, Broadway's status in America, especially in the American entertainment world, remained largely undiminished. To ordinary people, the Broadway stars, so high and mighty, were merely playthings of the American elite, their clothes and manners scrambling to attract their attention. After all, these men were seasoned pros, and women were nothing new to them. Lin Hao, an Asian who stood out among them, naturally caught the attention of these women. They didn't look down on him because of his skin color. Any man invited to this villa was undoubtedly a master. They soon discovered Lin Hao's extraordinary qualities. It was already past 3 in the morning. The men present, who had finished their fight early, were left with their jaws hanging open. They had been listening to the accompaniment for hours. I don't believe it. I want to see it with my own eyes. Unwilling to believe Lin Hao's fighting prowess, a close friend of Tony Stark stood up and headed for the bedroom. A moment later, he returned with admiring eyes, speaking with anticipation. Mr. Lin, Master Lin, I have a friend named Tony. Hey, Tony Stark, sitting on the sofa, gave him a death stare. You're such a good kid. I've just borrowed your name to make some friends a few times. Okay, his name is Pete. The man quickly corrected himself. I'd really like to help Pete. He's been a little overwhelmed lately. Medication is just a supplement, the key is the training technique. Lin Hao was just explaining his secret formula for sustained combat when the villa door flung open, and a bald, elderly man with a white beard burst in. Tony, Didn't you forget the military is giving you an award tonight? Obadiah Stanley shook the plastic trophy in his hand. Atop a glass pillar was a globe, abbreviated as Top All. What award? Tony leaned back on the sofa, his glass raised in one hand, his expression languid. He had just finished a cordial conversation with 3 beautiful women and felt exhausted. He just wanted to finish his nightcap and go to bed. Seeing they were about to discuss business, the other guests politely departed, returning to their bedrooms, leaving the living room to the 2 of them. Obadiah glanced at the trophy in his hand, unable to recall what it was. The prize isn't what's important. It's that you maintain your relationship with the military, Obadiah said earnestly, his expression akin to that of an elder disappointed in his junior. A few days ago, you cost the Air Force a crucial bargaining chip. They're lobbying the Pentagon to cut their purchases from Stark Industries next year. Wow, if they're willing to spend more money on a bunch of crap, so be it, Tony said nonchalantly. Tony felt a little melancholy thinking about his previous kindness to Will Fortson. He hadn't expected him to be murdered after arriving in San Francisco, and with such brutal means as ripping out his heart. This brought back some painful memories for Tony. His parents had also been brutally murdered, his father's skull collapsed, a clear sign of torture before his death. This incident also affected his good friend, Rode. Because he agreed to let Will Fortson leave the base to test new equipment, Rode was subsequently investigated by the Air Force and disciplined. Rode, an African-American soldier who had worked hard to reach the rank of colonel, now faced a disciplinary action, leaving him with no hope of further advancement. I know you're unhappy, Obadiah hesitated, his demeanor as a warm, elder-like presence impervious to outsiders. Well, if you don't want to deal with the Air Force, try getting more Army orders. The Army base in Afghanistan needs to acquire a batch of Jellicoe missiles, and you could go there to relax. As if worried Tony wouldn't go, Obadiah added another bargaining chip. You can also appoint Roddy as the liaison officer for this deal. Although he's offended the Air Force, the Army doesn't like those who secede without permission. The United States Air Force was officially established on September 18, 1947, after the end of World War II. Originally a subordinate branch of the Army, the Air Force declared independence after the war, much to the displeasure of traditional Army factions. Tony downed his drink and inquired, when do we leave? Making money or not was a minor issue. Tony was more interested in helping his friend. After all, the previous incident was largely due to his kindness. Without his support, Robbie wouldn't have covered for Will Fortson and thus wouldn't have been punished. As I said, when it comes to making friends, Tony doesn't care whether the person is rich or not, but rather whether the person is worthy of friendship. He is still good to his friends. We will leave at noon. You take a rest first, I will arrange the plane. Obadiah smiled kindly. Lin Hao, who was eavesdropping secretly, suddenly realized it was today. He has been in this world for 28 years, and it has been 10 years since he joined the SHIER and began to influence the world. The world has changed more or less because of him. The butterfly wings have already set off a storm. So Lin Hao couldn't be sure when Tony Stark would get into trouble and when the Marvel Cinematic Universe would officially begin. Tony Stark's line had an unusual meaning for the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. It was the beginning, and later it was the end of a stage. After sleeping until dawn, Lin Hao said goodbye to Tony Stark and called Zheng Xian as soon as he left the house. Boss, do you want to make a fortune in the stock market? Which company's boss are you going to kidnap again? End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone, see you in the next video.